The Night Lords by Nicholas Freeling. When a high court judge holidaying in France with his family finds a naked corpse in their Rolls-Royce, Henri Castang is called to investigate. What transpires is mocking mayhem, as Castang weaves his way through deception and mystery, and Freeling's wonderfully biting humor to unravel the secrets behind a thoroughly gruesome crime.
Henri Castang, born Paris, 1940, height 5 feet 10 inches, hair dark. Current rank, adjunct officer of police, heading the serious crime squad. His commander, Divisional Commissaire Richard of Central Division, has a very high opinion of his abilities. Wife, formerly Vera Paskova, born Brno, 1955, a Czechoslovak athlete who defected to France in 1975 and married Henri Castang to secure French citizenship. She is partially paralyzed as the result of a training accident, now works as an artist. Castang has marked left-wing liberal tendencies, which he makes no attempt to conceal. Speaks fluent English.
The Night Lords by Nicholas Freeling, dramatized by Michael Bakewell, with Keith Barron as Henri Castang.
Nice morning off, Castang.
Chance would be a fine thing. I've been out at Chivres.
Not another bank raid?
They've only got themselves to blame. What do they expect? They open a hole-and-corner branch in some dismal suburb, and they're surprised when they get held up by a gang of kids armed with nothing more dangerous than water pistols. Anything in that paper?
Wouldn't bother if I were you.
The usual.
The usual. Why don't the police get down to catching criminals instead of harassing law-abiding citizens?
In that case, Lasserre, it's time for lunch.
The plat du jour is stewed bacon and lentils. Endive salad.
Okay by me.
That'll be fine.
Wine?
Just a half.
Thank you, monsieur.
How's Vera?
She's all right. It's her third month now. She's been very undramatic about it. Discreet breath control exercises.
She managed to get about all right?
You know Vera. The moment she was off crutches, she became pregnant. A sort of celebration, she said.
Castang, telephone.
Oh, look, who knows we're here?
Fausta.
Excuse me. Look, Fausta, we've only just sat down.
Richard wants you.
But I haven't had lunch yet.
It's urgent. He wants you now.
What's that you're eating?
Scrambled eggs. Fausta bought in her camping stove.
I hope you realise I've given up lunch.
I want you to whip down to Thomas' restaurant straight away. Peculiar things are happening in his parking lot.
Why me?
A variety of reasons. He asked for you. Seems to think you'd be anxious to do him a favour.
You see, he's determined to get his money's worth. Vera did some drawings for his new menus, and he thought he was doing her a favour.
He seems to be in a muddle with some English people. Thought you might be able to handle it. After all, you are the English expert.
What's it all about?
I haven't the faintest idea. Vampires, by the sound of it. Corpses appearing and disappearing. He wants discretion. You know the kind of clientele he gets in his restaurant. Top people in high places. No press, he begs in tears. He's frightened he might lose a rosette. He might even give you lunch.
Have you eaten?
Well, I was...
Never mind, another time. Something to drink?
Yes, please.
Jean?
Monsieur Thomas?
There was an unfinished bottle of the 83 on table 12.
At once, monsieur.
So what's your problem?
There is a butcher. He lives in Le Puy.
Sounds promising.
His grandmother died in a town some distance from here. But it was a town where a certain company have a monopoly of the undertaking business and their prices are high. You understand?
Pardon me, monsieur.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you. Oh, very good.
So he loads Granny into his station wagon to drive the corpse back to Le Puy, where funerals come cheaper. On his way, he decides to stop here for lunch.
Haven't I heard this somewhere before?
While he was having lunch, someone stole the station wagon. He's been kicking up a terrible fuss. Just imagine what the papers will make of it all.
With no difficulty. But this isn't a matter for the police judiciaire. Car thefts, failure to register a death with the proper authorities. These concern the local gendarmerie. But I'll do what I can to expedite matters and see there is no adverse publicity.
Oh, that would be a great help.
And while I'm here, perhaps we could clear up the little matter of Vera's drawings.
I'll write her a check. It's very good publicity for her, of course. Our menus get taken away as souvenirs by people from all over the world, and with her signature on them. Do you see, Castang? It's a marvellous opening for her. But the affair of the butcher is not the reason I asked you to come here. There is far worse. I'm counting on you.
Oh, yes, the roast beef brigade. I saw their Rolls Royce in the car park.
Another glass.
Thank you.
I had to explain the other first. You see, the damned English girl discovers she's forgotten something in the middle of lunch, goes out to the car, and lets out the most frightful yell. There's a body in the boot.
How very awkward.
And as if that wasn't bad enough, the butcher starts up all over again, thought it was his granny. I got onto Richard straight away. I didn't want the local gendarmerie barging their way in here.
All right, I'll see what I can do. Where are the English?
In the little banqueting room. Didn't want to eat any more. One can hardly blame them, I suppose. I cancelled their bill, of course, but it's no fault of mine, damn it. How am I to keep it quiet?
Well...
But look, Castang, come out here with your wife and have whatever you please on the house. And moreover, I'll pay the whole agreed sum for her drawings. But for the love of heaven, see to it this goes no further.
Well, if you'll just give me that check now...
I'll write it out straight away.
Anybody leave early or in a hurry?
One or two, but they're locals. I know them. 3rd of March, isn't it?
That's right.
Just plain Vera Castang?
That'll do. I'll want identification. Wherever that's not possible, the most exact description you can get from, well, whoever served them.
Well, that's easy. And the people who are here now?
Oh, well, there's no need to upset them. When they pay, ask politely for them to leave their names and addresses. Routine police measures, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and have a waiter take a discreet note of the numbers of every car that's still in the car park. There'll be no problem about the butcher. Whoever pinched his wagon will dump it the second he discovers Granny. The gendarmerie will handle that little matter. And I'll look after the English, okay?
Emphatically okay. Here's your check.
You are the police?
That's right, police judiciaire. Do you mind if I sit down?
Please do.
Thank you.
Our name is Armitage. This is my husband, Sir James.
Oh.
And our 2 children, Colin and Patience.
How do you do?
We'd like to know how long we're expected to stay here.
Well, think of it as if your car had broken down.
I'm sorry, but I don't...
I know a Rolls-Royce doesn't, but if it had, you would have to take it into town and let the specialist have a look at it. Perhaps it needs a spare part. And that's what we're going to have to do about your case. What? It's now 2:20. If we're lucky, we might get it sorted out today, but I have to say it's more likely to be tomorrow lunchtime.
Oh dear. What, here?
Well, it would be better in town, I think. That's where we keep our mechanics. I'm sorry to have to interrupt your holiday, but, well, it's a nice town. First, I need to know a few facts. Now, I'm told you found a body in your car. Who is it? Where does it come from? It may be easy to find out. It may be more complicated. But in any case, there will be formalities. My superior, the commissaire, is the only one who can decide. He may want to see you himself.
Perhaps I should tell you at once that my husband is a High Court judge. You must realise that his word in any matter would be absolutely unquestionable. It strikes me that if he were to put his name to a statement for your superior, that would put an end to the matter.
I see. And what would be the essence of this statement?
Why, that we know nothing whatsoever about these questions. This, who is it and where does it come from? And that, frankly, is enough to satisfy any police authority. We quite realise, of course, none better than ourselves, that the police have their work to do, but this abominable discovery is purely coincidental. Our car has been parked in the open. The affair concerns us no further.
I don't want to irritate you, but I am a servant of the law. Sir James, I'm sorry, is that correct? You understand that there are rules which must be observed. We have here an unexplained death. Someone has sought to conceal that death, to disguise or falsify the circumstances, and that is serious. The law here prescribes that the procureur makes an inspection. If he is not satisfied, which seems very probable, he will ask an examining magistrate to open an inquiry. The commissaire will then decide the course it should take. Until that is done, I cannot help you. You must help me. That is clear, I believe.
I suppose there's something in what you say. Please understand this, then. If we do as you ask, it is reluctantly and under protest.
Yes.
Certainly we shall lose no time in contacting the consular authorities in requesting their presence at any official transaction, and in notifying our embassy, which will see that proper steps are taken.
I think that this should be put on record. I'll take note of your protest and of your appeal to your rights. They will be scrupulously respected. But you must understand that the procedure will cause delays in the administrative process.
Mr. Let me put a question to you. These notes you were taking, what evidential value, if any, do they have?
This is called a preliminary inquiry. Until ordered by the magistrate, no, the notes are not evidence. They are a documentation of any facts apparent to me that may be relevant in any subsequent legal procedure.
In that case, don't waste your time writing anything at all. My name and address will be quite sufficient. You sought to impress my wife, and did so enough to provoke her into talking about consuls. I can't see any need for that, Rosemary. As he says, it would only complicate their bureaucracy further. 5 minutes with your superior would be quite enough to settle this.
Good. The names and addresses, then, if you'd be so kind, and the serial numbers of your passports, please.
What?
Rather like prisoners of war. And then it will be necessary for me to view the body.
I'm not going through opening it up again. Can't you do it, Colin?
Oh, all right. Give me the keys, Patience.
And what is your opinion of all this, Mr. Armitage?
Well, it seems obvious to me. If someone wants to get rid of a little embarrassment, he tries to hook it onto someone else. The unlikelier, the better. Starts a red herring. What none of us can understand is that you should fall for it. While you're fussing about here, the real chap's on a plane to Brazil or something. Shall I do the honours?
If you please.
There you are.
She was naked, mid-20s at a guess, probably strangled. I haven't moved her.
Good. Have the car towed in here by the local garage, with them in it.
Well, isn't that going a bit far?
I thought you told them to treat it as a car breakdown.
I didn't mean it literally.
Best way to handle it. It might also bring them down a peg. I'll have the procurer's number 2 and the police surgeon waiting for their arrival. Treat them just like anyone else. Who these people say they are is irrelevant.
You'll interview the judge.
I'm looking forward to it.
Sir James Armitage, permit me to introduce the members of what in France we term the parquet, a phrase referring to the well of the court, I believe. This is Monsieur Arnaud, the procurer's senior substitute, and Mr. Chalmite, the examining magistrate. May I present Mr. Martin Green, the British Vice Consul?
Ah, Green.
Pleased to be of service, Sir James. The Consul General is away, I'm afraid.
This is Dr. Baudet, the police surgeon.
Right, let's get started, shall we? If someone would unlock the boot.
The pleasure's mine, I'm afraid. There you are.
Well, get her out, somebody, get her out. You don't expect me to climb in there, do you?
Just a minute. Photo. Right, get her out.
Let's see now. Rigor mortis, wearing off. Yes, thought so. Have to look at her in detail, obviously. But, in the meantime, homicide. Strangulation, not manual, not ligature. Arm. Somebody killed her with the crook of his elbow.
You can confirm that much now?
Yes, Monsieur Arnaud, I can.
At least we can be grateful for no ambiguities.
Will you proceed, Monsieur Chalmite?
Yes. Investigation hereby opened. Please see to the preliminaries, Commissaire Richard. Perhaps the gentleman from the consulate would care to be present.
I would, certainly.
We'll go to my office, shall we? I hope there'll be enough room.
I thought everybody could gather here in the outer office. Then we could use your office for the statements.
We'll do just that, Faster. And I think you do well to book rooms at the Albion Hotel for Sir James and his family. One night should suffice, I think, since the doctor's going to do the autopsy right away.
Right.
Carstang, you'll take 4 statements from each of the Armitage family.
Yeah.
Sir James, you'll find the Albion quite a comfortable place. The adjective perfidious is rather out of date, I should hope. Mr. Green is welcome to be present at the interrogations, if it be so wished.
Thank you.
Which is all that needs to be said at this juncture. Will you carry on, Carstang?
I'll take Sir James first, if you please.
We crossed the Channel on the last day of February, around midday. We didn't go far. I don't like hurrying when I'm on holiday. We got as far as Rouen and had a look at all that Joan of Arc carry-on. We stayed the night there. Didn't care for the food much, too heavy for my taste.
And what was the name of the hotel?
Oh, I can't recall. We'll have to ask my wife. But in any case, the car was in the hotel garage that night. The next day, we potted about the cheese and cider country. Had a spot of lunch in Caen. Went to have a look at the site of the wartime landings in Arromanches. We ended the day in Bayeux. I didn't feel like eating very much, but we had a good bottle of wine.
And the car that night?
It was parked in the hotel courtyard. They locked the gate at night, as I recall.
And the following day?
Oh, we had a very long and very tedious drive. We ended up somewhere near Tours. Again, Rosemary will have to tell you exactly where. It was a pleasant country house sort of place. Mercifully light food. A blessed relief after all that heavy Normandy cooking. And delightfully quiet. We slept well. The next day... Well, you know all about the next day.
So you had no fixed itinerary?
We never do. Just go where the spirit takes us. You can find rooms anywhere at this time of the year. That's why we chose it.
So no one would have been aware of your movements?
To the best of my knowledge, no. As far as I can see, Inspector, the poor wretched girl must have been inserted into the car at Tours. But I suppose your forensic people will sort all that out.
So you didn't make any stops on the morning the body was found?
No, I don't believe we did.
Did any of you take anything out of the boot while the car was at Tours?
I didn't go near it myself. I had my overnight bag. I hadn't set eyes on my suitcase since we left Bayeux, but my wife is in charge of the luggage. She is most efficient.
I can't be sure. I only had the little suitcase at Tours, and I gave the keys to the porter person and let him load up the car.
And you're sure he locked it?
No, I'm not. And there was a delay of about 10 minutes before we set off, because Patience had left something in her room. I was preoccupied in trying to sort out the bill at the time. Shamefully expensive. I'm sure they overcharged us.
And did you check that the boot was locked before you drove off?
I generally do. It's a kind of reflex action, but I couldn't swear to it.
And where had the car been parked during the night?
In the car park. It's some distance from the hotel. The place stands in its own grounds, but anyone could just wander in.
And is there a spare set of keys, Lady Armitage?
There are 3. One set is with a chauffeur in London. He's Portuguese, a charming boy, but there was no point in bringing him. I have a set, and so does my daughter Patience. She shares the driving with me.
Yes, I did go back to my room just before we left. For personal reasons, if you must know. It couldn't have been more than 5 minutes.
And did you take any luggage from the boot into the hotel at Tours?
No, I had my overnight bag. We all do. It's so much easier when you're only staying for one night.
And when you left in the morning, did you notice whether the boot was locked?
Oh, I've no idea. It was raining and I just popped my case inside the car. Oh, but yes, of course it was. At lunchtime, I went out to get a road map from the car and I had to unlock the boot to get it. I remember unlocking it because, well, that's when I found her. I got such a fright I just banged it shut again.
Did you make any stops that morning?
Oh, just to get some petrol in some village, and I popped into the service station.
Was there any particular reason why you decided to have lunch at Thomas' restaurant?
Well, it's quite famous, isn't it? And in any case, we had arranged to meet my brother there.
What should I be doing tagging along with them? When I heard they were going off on holiday, I thought it a good notion to join them somewhere along the way.
Yes?
I wanted to get a bit of skiing in. I arranged to meet them at the restaurant here. I wanted to taste Monsieur Thomas' celebrated cooking, and I thought the old folk would probably foot the bill.
So where were you last night?
Deauville.
Ah, Deauville.
Well, I mean, not exactly in Deauville. Somewhere around, a few miles outside. There are about 10,000 signs all saying Caen.
And the name of the hotel?
Oh, I've no idea. The Golden Lion? Or the Red Lion? Or the Three-Legged Lion? They all look alike, don't they?
Do they?
Yeah, wooden beams, check tablecloths, Gothic lettering, chicken valet doge and lamb chops. I was tired. I was only looking for a place to kip and have some grub. Didn't exactly go looking it up in Michelin.
But surely you must have a bill, and that would tell you the name
I don't bother to keep bills. I'm not a commercial traveller. As I said, it wasn't the kind of place you remember. I went up early, read a book, a detective story.
Ah.
The detectives were far better in the book than they are in real life.
You know, there's nothing fundamentally improbable or odd about any of this.
I suppose not, Mr. Green.
Colin is rather a cool card, but he's quite outside the scope of your inquiry. Wouldn't you agree? It's the Rolls-Royce that is the key. Somebody found it clever. I hesitate to use the word funny to place the body there.
I'll see if the boys have finished with the rolls. Otherwise, can you ferry the judge and his family back to the Albion?
Oh, yes. I've got my car here. God knows I'm expected to keep them entertained.
Well, they are rather difficult.
English people tend to have a deep-rooted fear of French law. They'll have seen that neither you nor the commissaire are exactly ogres.
What's the population of Deauville in the month of March? I mean, it's not much more than a village at this time of year.
Don't let it get to you.
Look, Green was obviously worried that I was going to treat Colin's attitude as insolence. At the very least, it's a challenge.
Unless the examining magistrate insists on it, I wouldn't go checking on where the boys stay. It's a trap. Over the last dozen years, there have been maybe 4 cases of murder involving English tourists. And I only need remind you of Gaston Dominici.
But that was years ago.
Not where the British press are concerned. Every time they work up an immense hullabaloo about our disregard for human rights. If we let the boy provoke us into anything construable as unreasonable interference, they'll have us on toast. As it is, we'll get accused of a smear campaign against Rolls-Royces.
Well, I said we shouldn't have towed the car through the streets.
There are a variety of small discrepancies in these statements.
Yes, the judge says they didn't stop this morning, whereas there was, in fact, a petrol stop.
And the girl went to the lavatory. I'll send Ortez to check it out. Exactly the right job for him.
Oh, and they had another pee stop somewhere in the country.
So much for the British bladder. Must be all that tea. We must find out whether the car was left unattended for any period of time, and we must check on all the people in Thomas' car park.
Well, that's been done.
How about the butcher's granny? Any sign of her?
Well, the gendarmerie found her in a ditch. The butcher's claiming she was damaged in transit. You don't think that the boy may be deliberately trying to put us off the scent of what happened in Tours by leaving a false trail in Deauville?
If we start inquiring into what English tourists picked up whores in Deauville, even in the month of March, every French visitor to Marks and Spencer's in Bournemouth will be arrested for shoplifting.
And what about the other guests at Tours?
Tours is, what, under 2 hours by autoroute from Paris? All those places are love nests. That's what the examining magistrate thinks anyway. Something goes wrong in the middle of the night. The fellow hides corpse in handily parked Rolls-Royce.
But surely he'd put it in his own car, the one he could be sure no one else would open.
Say that to an examining magistrate and he'd say overtaken by panic. Let's see what Tours says tomorrow.
That smells good.
It smells good simply because there's a bit of grated cheese on the top, which is now under the grill.
What is it?
It's only eggs a la tripe. It's just a meal and it has no importance. It's kind of you to be polite and utter a word of appreciation for the housewife who has taken pains over the stupid grub.
Well, even so, you better tell me how to do it. Now, you're going to have other things on your mind fairly soon. How is the baby?
Quiet and comfortable.
Good.
Do you really want to know?
What?
Eggs a la tripe.
Yeah, of course.
You make a bit of cream sauce with a lot of sliced onions stewed in the milk.
Yes.
You put sliced hard-boiled eggs in a fireproof dish, pour the sauce over, and add the grated cheese.
Oh, well, I think I might manage that. Is there any beer in the fridge?
There should be. Why are you late?
Well, it's been that sort of day, and the journey back was murder. Why is it that whenever a motorist sets eyes on a man on a bike, he behaves like a raving maniac?
I wish you wouldn't do it. I'm always worried when you take your bike.
Well, it's better than staring at the behind of a car in front of you for half an hour. One guy actually forced me into the gutter and then cursed me for getting in his way.
So what did you do?
Well, I showed him my badge and asked to see his papers. So there'll be yet another complaint in the press about the police interfering with the rights of ordinary citizens.
Look, why don't you drink your beer and take a shower? Wash that tired policeman's look off your face.
Yeah, well, if only it could all go away that easily.
Anything in particular?
The face of a dead girl.
Something that might interest you, Commissaire.
Yes?
She was 9 weeks pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Sedentary worker, secretarial. Played quite a lot of tennis. Her teeth were bad, considerably mended and standing in need of more. Went around a good deal in bare feet.
Really?
It's obvious. Some alcohol present, in fact rather a lot. She must have been fairly drunk. She'd eaten an hour or two before death. Final meal, shellfish, steak, deep-fried potatoes, salad, cake. Depending on what time she ate, we can put her death around midnight.
I see.
Sexual intercourse between the meal and the death. I won't say there was a struggle, but she was handled with some roughness. Bruising not consistent with rape. She was a willing partner. Is that enough we're going on with, or do you want more?
No, thank you, Doctor. It's about as much as I need.
You'll be getting a full report as soon as possible.
Thank you, Doctor.
Lasserre's got the report from Tours.
Oh, anything of interest?
Well, it doesn't get us very far. The porter who handled the suitcase says he didn't see the interior of the car boot. Quote, stood there and got loaded with a heap of junk, unquote. Same boy brought out case next morning, but claims to have left it on ground beside car. Asked for explanation, says, quote, I received the impression they were kind of customers who didn't like the car touched, unquote. Tours are definitely of the impression that the hotel staff are unlikely to have been involved.
Even the English couldn't put a case in the boot without noticing a body there.
The whole point is they never actually opened the boot. They just chucked the case onto the back seat.
So we still don't know whether the boot was locked overnight.
Well, if those damn stupid English hadn't been too lazy to open the boot in Tours, we'd never been stuck with all this nonsense. Obviously, the whole inquiry belongs at Tours.
That's not what the examining magistrate thinks.
Mr. Martin Green's on the phone. He wants to talk to you.
Tell him to give them all lunch. I'll be over as soon as I can.
So, they didn't even bother to check whether it was locked. I've been saying all along they weren't to be trusted.
Hush, Mother, that's enough.
It's obvious we're not going to be able to clear this matter up within 24 hours. We shall have to widen the scope of our inquiries.
But surely you don't mean to keep these good people...
No, Mr. Green, I do not. I've no wish to keep the Armitage family here any longer. They're free to proceed as they please.
Oh, thank God for a ray of common sense at last.
There's just one reservation. The examining magistrate has the right to hear and summon witnesses. In the event of a piece of evidence coming to light which might involve your confirmation, we shall need to know where we can get in touch with you.
I see. Well, it's just we don't have any definite plans. I mean, Colin wanted to ski, and we thought of staying on the south coast. Round Cannes, perhaps.
But you'll be in France for the next 2 weeks.
More or less. The start we've had doesn't exactly encourage us.
You mustn't let that or me spoil your holiday. A simple telephone call to the police at Cannes or Nice just to say where you'll be staying.
Our consulate in Nice would be glad to give...
Excellent suggestion. It'd be embarrassing for you to have to keep on phoning police stations.
That wasn't quite what I... Oh, well, I suppose so.
Let me wish you a pleasant holiday. Don't give any of this a second thought. That's my work.
You're not going to like this.
What is it?
It's Baudet's comments on the preliminary dental report on the girl.
Most, if not all, this dental work is of a quality I can only call cheap. The style of the work is not European, nor I should say American. If asked to offer an opinion, I should hazard its origin as being English. So, what do you expect me to do? Tell the examining magistrate that because the naked girl in the boot had her teeth done in England, to all intents and purposes she's English, and he asks, what intents and purposes? What do I say to that?
Well, I imagine that it might cross your mind the naked girl could be in some way connected with or even known to these good folk. She didn't necessarily travel with them, but she may have met up with them by design.
At which the magistrate suggests that we ask the English CID to investigate the family's background, with a view to obtaining a positive identification of the said naked girl?
Well, something like that.
No, we won't do that, Castang, because the CID won't be pleased at the idea of a lot of loutish French cops suggesting that their eminent judge has chosen a barefoot nympho as his travelling companion.
Then perhaps you could send them the dental report.
We could, but I think we'll do it the hard way. You can go to Tours and make inquiries about the girl, get some action out of their commissariat. It happened on their premises, so they've only got themselves to blame. And while you're at it, you can go on to Caen and check on the Armitage boy's story.
But yesterday, when I suggested that...
That was yesterday. Now the examining magistrate is insisting that we investigate it. You can go to Deauville. Trip to the seaside. You'll like that. And take a few photographs of the dead girl with you.
But listen, she was swollen up like bubble gum.
Then get them to make a sketch of what she would have looked like. That's what they're there for. Or why did you ask Vera if she could have a shot at it? If she wouldn't find it too gruesome.
Now, you don't have to look at this if you don't want. She's not very nice. The efforts at retouching are catastrophic. I don't know, if we tried from the other end, make a drawing and then photograph that.
Let me see. Oh, God.
Look, you don't have to do it.
Oh, you have to get used to it, and so can I. But all I could do is an illustration, an imaginative reconstruction. What does your pathologist say about her?
I've got it here. Ears of rare beauty, breasts splendid. Always goes a bit over the top. Lips magnificently modelled, race half-breed Eurasian or quadroon, Latin skull.
Slav, perhaps. I'll try.
But at the very least she'll look like somebody alive, and that's the way anybody who saw her will recollect her. I'd better pack a bag.
Where are you off to?
Richard's sending me to the seaside, to Deauville. But I'm stopping off at Tours on the way.
Well, she doesn't look bad. Never easy to do. You know, I remember one that had taken a shotgun blast from close up. Now, where were these Armitage people before coming to Tours?
Normandy, Bayeux, Rouen, at Channel Ferry.
And according to the dental work, you think she might be English?
Well, the photos have been sent off to all the cross-channel ports. I mean, there's no harm in trying. There aren't that many tourists this time of year.
Oh, God knows how many English people working in Paris, and even more of them resident in Normandy. I don't fancy your chance of picking up the track of this one girl who might possibly be English along the road from here to the coast. As for our inquiries at the hotel here, we'll do our best, but it could take some time to locate everyone who stayed there that night. But what's the rush, anyway?
Well, these English people are at provisional liberty, or just plain liberty, rather, since there's not the remotest evidence to point to them. Now, they might be around for a fortnight or so, but if it does turn out that they are involved, it will be a lot easier to cope with, well, while they're still on French soil.
Well, we'll do what we can.
You'll look for her clothes.
I don't need you, you know, to teach me my job.
It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. The Auberge de l'Hermitage. No, doesn't look likely. If only young Colin hadn't been so deliberately vague, going on about red and gold lions, and 2,000 road signs all saying Caen. And now there are 2 signs saying Caen. Well, if we allow for a little natural exaggeration... and there's a hotel. The Couronne. No lion of any sort. But it looks right. Well, there's no harm in trying.
Yeah, I remember him well. A young English chap with one of those little cars. It was in number 4, I think. Well, I can look it up in the book.
No, you finish your meal first. Single room.
Well, they're all doubles. With only 10. Or by himself, if that's what you mean. Ate alone right here at this table, served him myself.
Have you ever seen this girl?
No. If she'd been here, I'd have seen her.
Even in a bedroom?
Oh, you mean did he pick up a girl? Oh, not to my knowledge. It's possible, I suppose. Chambermaid might have noticed. You can ask her if you like. In the kitchen.
What time do you lock up at night?
Oh, around midnight. Till then, the outside door is shut, but not locked.
And in the morning?
Oh, I'm out early because of the market. Maria's here to make coffee. My wife's up at 7:30. That's as early as people leave. What's the trouble?
Well, we're just checking on this young chap's movements. If he had a companion, that would interest me. That's all.
I'll talk to Maria. I'll be here if you want me. She's a big, fat girl.
You're sure?
Of course I'm sure. Bed used, traces of makeup, and a smell. I brought him his breakfast. He was alone then.
And what time was that?
Ordinary time, 7:30, 8 maybe. She was gone earlier. Easy enough.
Is there anything you can think of to describe her, like fair or dark? Perfume, maybe. Hair in a waistband.
Oh, don't use a magnifying glass when I clean. What does it matter to me, anyway?
But just trying to think. Anything you can remember.
What? You mean knickers? Or a comb or an earring? Well, often, but not this time. Nothing.
Well, then why are you so sure there was someone?
Experience.
Here you are, copy of the bill. Bedroom number 4, like I said. Monsieur Robert Maxwell.
Really? Did you get a look at his car?
Yeah, one of those little coupes, dark blue. Green, perhaps. Difficult to tell at night.
And were there skis on the car?
Yeah, there were. Red. Or maybe black.
Well, that's close enough. Thanks a lot. Can I keep the bill?
Sure, why not?
But does it really mean anything at all? Colin has a night of love with an unknown girl in a quiet hotel in Normandy. If there really was a girl at all. But it doesn't mean it was our girl. Well, it's probably no business of ours anyway. Robert Maxwell. Quite a joker. But the bill is for the night of the 1st. How can I have been so stupid? Colin Armitage said he was here the night the family stopped a tour. But he wasn't. He was here 24 hours earlier. He was lying. But why? And where was he on the night of the 2nd?
You're out of luck, I'm afraid. The commissaire's gone home. There's only me, Inspector Robber.
You'll do.
It's about the woman in the car, isn't it? I saw the signal, but the boss didn't say what he wanted doing with it.
Well, nothing yet. I came here hoping to find something that would tie in with it. I mean, I've spent the whole day running around after a boy who told me that he'd been in the area. In fact, so he had. Only it was the wrong day. He certainly spent the night with a woman, but there's nothing to say she was the naked body in the boat.
Why don't you ask him?
Well, he's up in the Alps in some ski place. But that's not it. I mean, the old man's a top English judge, and one can't go on at them on a slight supposition. The English would start getting on their very high horses.
Awkward.
Look, I'm starving. Let's go and have a bite to eat somewhere. I'm sure my expenses will cover us both. Is there any chance of a nice bit of fish?
There's a place by the harbour that's not so bad. I don't know about the fish. The whole goddamn estuary's polluted. But then, so are we, so what odds does it make? Calvados?
When in Rome, why not? That was just what I needed.
2 Calvados, doubles.
Certainly, Inspector.
Well, now, this woman who was with him, she didn't just jump out of the window in her nightie. Where'd she go to?
Well, she must have come from somewhere around here. But did he pick her up in Deauville or not? In any case, I don't think that she's the girl I'm looking for. I mean, no one recognized the face at the casino.
Did we get a photo with the signal? I didn't see one.
Well, don't worry, I've got one here.
Well, if she was a tourist, it'd be quite easy to... Bloody hell.
Yes, well, you see, she didn't look so good, so we fixed up a drawing.
Yes, I see, it's not bad either, but look, I know this woman.
What?
She just walked into the office. Said she was a journalist. I tell you, the English are balmy, but this beat everything I've ever heard. Good-looking girl, too.
She isn't anymore.
So she's not. It's queer, though. And it's very funny that she should be dead.
Funny?
Because she kept talking about death.
2 Calvados.
Oh, thanks very much.
Well, as my boss says, kindly try and make your narration coherent.
Salut.
Salut.
I was on the late shift. And you know how many people come into the station with weird tales or phony confessions, so I didn't take her seriously. She said she was a journalist, doing a series about crime, and could she interview me? So I said yes, subject to the usual, you know, anonymous source, no direct quotes, not to be taken as official.
Yeah.
She got a shorthand pad out to scribble on. An oddball. That was evident from the start.
Was she in fact English?
She didn't say so. She spoke quite good French. Fluent, an accent, but, what's the word? Colloquial.
Yeah. But how was she dressed?
Quite expensive, and, well, a bit scruffy. Leather coat, silk scarf, dressed like a sack, but good wool, blurry, swirly pattern in lots of colours, gold chain bracelet, high boots. I said, well, you're English. Why come here? She said, you've still got the death penalty. I mumbled the usual about, yes, but very rarely applied, more's the pity, and suddenly she says, have you killed people? So I woke up a bit, thought, steady boy, she's trying to be provocative.
Yeah.
Look, girl, I say, it happens that sometimes people shoot at us. She says, of course, and am I wearing a gun? And can she see it? Handle it? So I took the magazine out and gave it to her.
Yeah. Exciting yourself.
You're not kidding. All those jokes about the gun being the penis. She sat there cuddling it. So I asked for it back, said, no, sorry, that's serious, not for girls. She gave it back, said nothing, just grinned. Big mouth, lots of pale pink lipstick, that silvery kind.
Very attractive.
Oh, yes. Fantastically. Great wafts of it. Had I ever seen anyone guillotined, she said. I said no, abrupt. Was there anyone under sentence of death? Because she'd like to interview him, and could I get her in? So I said no, and no. It's interesting to be hand in hand with death, she says. I thought it was time to call a halt. Sorry, I've quite a lot of work, but enjoy your stay in car and see you around, I hope. Off she went with no further fuss. Well, it doesn't sound much, but the way she looked and spoke, I'm not altogether surprised. I mean about her turning up in the car trunk. She was looking for excitement and chose maybe the wrong time and place.
But she must have had luggage, and almost certainly a car. And was she with anyone?
Should be easy enough to check. Let's go back to the office. I can ring up the hotels. Least I can do after that meal.
All I'm concerned about is getting my money.
Yes, madame, of course, I understand.
What's his name?
Castang, Inspector Castang. He'll be right over. You're in luck.
Good.
The old bag was complaining about a no-show. The night your boyfriend in Deauville is supposed to have slipped a woman in, my necrophiliac girlfriend, clearly recognizable from her description, didn't occupy her room.
I see.
Which wasn't relet and wasn't paid for, so the old skinflint saw.
There you are, Inspector. Miss Mary Johnson, Egham, Surrey.
Thank you. We might want it photocopied. Now, I understand she left her luggage.
A suitcase. I'm holding on to it. I've the right to keep it to reimburse my losses.
Well, I'm sorry, but all property is impounded and kept in police custody. That is the law.
Then I want a receipt.
Well, you can send a claim in to the examining magistrate. Now, what time was it when she checked in?
Oh, early afternoon. Looked at the room, came down a few minutes later and drove off.
In what kind of car?
Small, red, not a French car.
Was there anyone in the car waiting for her?
No, she was alone. So you want her suitcase?
Yes, I do.
It's in here. Leave much, did she?
Well, much as you might expect. Clothes, underwear, shoes. Not barefoot all the time, then.
What?
Well, nothing.
Any money?
No, nor any washing or makeup things. But a strange smell of perfume. Do you recognise it?
No idea.
Yes, a dark, rich scent.
That's right.
It seemed to hang over the office for days. Well, what's the next step?
How far's Bayeux?
28 kilometres. Why?
Well, the judge and his family stayed there at the end of their second day.
Oh.
Now, if only I could establish some kind of link between them and the girl.
It's not a very big place. An English girl in an English car, out of season. Somebody might remember. Particularly a girl like that.
Yeah, I'll try the hotel where the Armitages stayed. They might even have a room. It's getting late.
I'm afraid not. We're always full, even at this time of year. I'll just check for you.
That will be very kind. And while I'm here, I would like to see the manager, please.
Oh, yes, sir. I'll buzz him. He's in his office.
I remember the judge and his family very well. They'd been looking at the site of the landings in Arromanches. But this girl, no. Unusual type. Wouldn't have missed her. And yet there is something vaguely... a resemblance, perhaps, to some person I've seen somewhere, but... Yes? Right, I'll tell him. The girl's found a room for you.
Not much of a room, I'm afraid. Still, it's a bed.
Thank you. Could I just ask you to have a look at this? Have you ever seen this girl?
I'm not sure. She didn't stay here, that I do feel sure of. But people do come in to ask questions or buy picture postcards.
Or maybe to leave a message, make a phone call?
I'm sorry, I really can't be positive.
No, Richard's not here, I'm afraid.
Well, what about Lasserre?
He's out too.
Where are they?
The savings bank got knocked over again. The one in St. Clair?
Look, that's the third time in 3 months.
That's right. Lasserre's doing his nut. Anything I can tell anybody? If anybody shows up, that is.
Well, yes. Can you tell Richard I finished in Caen?
Mm-hmm.
I'm on my way back to Tours. I'm trying to find the girl's car.
English Toyota? Yeah. On level 3.
And how long's he been there?
A few days. Couldn't say exactly. Wouldn't really notice unless it was reported stolen or something.
But you do look from time to time.
Well, most nights. Wouldn't believe the things some people get up to. Old wrecks abandoned, boxes of every sort of dirty rubbish. Woman left the baby once. Just said she forgot it.
Could the Toyota have been there a week?
Oh, it's possible. I'll show you. That's the one.
Thank you. And the ticket's still on it. 9:27 on the 3rd. The day after she died.
The key's here.
Sorry?
Taped to the inside of that bumper. Nothing surprised you in this business after a time?
No, nothing inside the car. Let's open the boot.
You didn't find another body.
Sorry to disappoint you. All I found was her overnight bag, makeup and jewellery, and no sign of the clothes she'd been wearing, nor her handbag.
But why would you expect them to be in the boot?
Well, because the car was parked there the morning after her death, the day her body was discovered. The murderer, or an accomplice, drove it there and left it with the keys all ready for us to find. And there was something else.
What?
Well, under the driving seat, her tights and knickers. Yeah, taken off in one. Certainly by her. Or why bury them under the driving seat? The PATH report said she'd made love before she was killed. But where or with? Oh, anyway, that's enough of all that. Now then, who's been here? Have you got a secret lover or something?
Maybe. How do you know someone's been here?
Well, I'm a detective. It's my job, remember. Or have you become a secret pipe smoker? Well, you know, women do funny things when they're pregnant.
Monsieur Bianchi dropped in. He wanted to talk to you, really.
Oh, but anything specific?
Just a chat, I think. After 30 years in the police, you need to talk shop with your old colleagues once in a while. He got quite philosophical.
Oh, really?
About the role of the police in society. He said the police is an elastic cushion between the government and the governed.
Ground between two millstones, I'd have thought.
He also said the police in Venice used to be called the Lords of the Night.
Oh, that's good.
Very bad, I should have thought. The worst kind of political police. He didn't know it was the name that interested him. Because what is night?
Yeah, well, go on.
So I said from a painter's point of view, night was just a special kind of light. He said, no, night was an ancient spirit of evil. Night is the cholera, he said.
Did he?
When he went, he turned to me quite seriously and said, don't go out between sunset and sunrise. I said I never did, and he nodded and said, in earlier times that was understood.
Oh, well, who would have suspected it of old Bianchi? There's a lot to be said for electric light, but like most technology, it obscures as much as it illuminates. The Lords of the Night. You know, you do bring out the most remarkable things in people. It's a very special talent.
The potato soup's ready. That's another of my special talents.
It seems to me that your Armitage boy is concealing most, if not all, of the relevant information and attempting to use his family connections as an umbrella. But since his sister chose an extraordinary moment to open the car boot and let out an enormous scream, we can perhaps assume that the family itself has no guilty knowledge.
But if they'd known, surely they'd have tipped the girl into the ditch a lot earlier, like that butcher's granny.
Just so. I'm given to understand, however, that any interference with the judge or his family would be thought of as a hostile act by the British Embassy. And there's another thing. Fausta got a signal from the CID in London to say they've got an identification on the girl.
So that's good.
Yes, but they also say, which is very kind and neighbourly, that they propose to send 2 of their most skilled and experienced men over to assist with our inquiries. In other words, they propose to put the dog leash on us. And the muzzle, too.
When are they coming?
That's just it. They should be here at any moment. I've got a meeting at the prefecture, so you'll have to handle them.
But what am I supposed to do?
I'll leave it all to you. I'll be back by lunch.
My name's Larkins.
Hello.
How do you do? And this is Mr. Townsend.
Oh, well, please,
We
sit
thought
down.
we'd...
How was the flight?
Oh, very pleasant,
I
thank
thought the
you.
gentleman might like a cup of tea.
Oh, what an excellent idea.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fausta. And would you please tell Ortez we don't want any interruptions?
Very well, Inspector.
Well, what a wonderful girl.
Yes, she's far and away the best thing we've got round here.
Yeah. We got an identification on the girl without too much trouble, as it happened. Didn't need the teeth chart. Assuming that she was English, we made a presumption that she left the country recently, concentrated on that, and struck oil quite quickly.
Yeah.
She paid for her journey by cheque, so it was plain sailing. A Miss Laetitia Toth, with an address in West London.
Ah, we see, I only know her as Miss Mary Johnson from Egham.
Really? Fertile imagination. She's not, in fact, particularly English. Her father was Malaysian and her mother was French, oddly enough. Says here, born in Nice. Parents no longer living. Job with the BBC. Script girl stuff. For the last 3 years, she's been employed in freelance journalism. Lived alone in a small flat in Holland Park. We thought we'd just best pop over. Nothing much there. But one or two slight oddities, including 2 undeclared and certainly unregistered firearms. What were they again?
An American pistol, 32 Ivor Johnson, hence your Mary Johnson, conceivably, and a whacking great Llama 45, loaded, what's more.
And then there were her writings. Relatively sophisticated women's magazine stuff for the most part. But we did come across this, which at any level's out of key. I'll read it. The Luger is the perfect instrument of death, which makes it the perfect work of art. The aesthetics are perfectly satisfying because death is the climax.
Now, that's extraordinary.
Isn't it? None of the other bits of writing lying around matches it. Either it was a note for something quite fresh or whatever it was, she had a morbid preoccupation with firearms.
Or with death, by this or any other means.
Fausta, I thought I said...
Mr. Green.
Am I an unreasonable interruption?
No, not at all.
I've an instruction to see to these gentlemen's expenses. Let me have the pleasure of inviting you all to lunch.
God, it's too idiotic. You've killed a person, and you're lumbered with the body. So you drive to the most conspicuous place you can choose, a 3-star restaurant in the middle of France. I ask you.
Yeah.
It's madness.
You're rather silent, Castaigne.
Well, I'm eating and listening. The examining magistrate is alive to all these arguments. He'll probably agree with them. Mr. Green, did you manage to find out anything about the judge and his family?
I looked him up in Who's Who. Much if it is rather arcane to an un-English ear, but you're welcome to it.
Thank you. Yes, I see what you mean. Educated Marlborough, Trinity College, Cambridge, hobbies, country walks, botany and birds. Well, there's nothing very helpful there. Flat off Sloane Street and a home in Egham. Is that Egham in Surrey?
I presume so. Are there others?
Isn't that where the girl claimed to have come from? Odd that. Castaigne, I'm wondering if there's a possibility the girl may have been following this family for some obscure reason. Her giving that phony address does bear that out in a way, and she was a sort of journalist. Makes one wonder if she was trying
to get alongside him for some reason.
You mean to get an interview for something she was writing?
On his holiday?
Oh, it's worth following up, perhaps. But why should he be good copy, the judge?
Well, he was fairly well known as a hardliner.
You mean the sort who'd want to bring back the death penalty?
Oh, I wouldn't put it past him.
None of this gets us any closer to why she was killed.
No.
I still think she may have had criminal associates. Firearms point to that. Perhaps whoever killed her knew of her interest in the judge. I'd like to know Commissaire Richard's views.
So would I. Where the hell's he got to?
My dear boy, I'm quite desolate. My heart bled for you.
Now, that's just not good enough. Now, you put me out on a branch and you've sawn it off. To the English police, I'm just an underling.
I am truly sorry, but I've been stuck with the prefect all this time. Where are they now?
Well, at the consulate, I think.
I better go up there and see them. Fausta, will you ring up Green?
Okay.
I'll be straightforward with you, Castaigne. These English are being a bit funny. The minister, no less, has said there's to be no trouble. So, on the English side, somebody quite high up has asked for the door to be bolted.
And just when we've established a positive link between the dead girl and the judge. Little Letitia used a phony name and something close to the judge's address. She spent the night with his son. Now, we can't prove it, but it's so. And she's obsessed with firearms. We found a car, but not her clothes.
Yes, I know.
I mean, but nor have we found links with anyone else in the last few days before she was killed but the Armitages. And now you tell me we're to lay off.
I never said any such thing. When have I ever told you to lay off? Mind you, life would have been much more peaceful if I had.
Mr. Green says they'd be delighted to see you, and won't you come to tea?
Tea? At the consulate? Mm-hmm. Tell them I'd like that very much.
I'll tell them.
Nice weather for fishing.
Fishing?
Cold with the dry wind.
I don't quite follow.
Tour. It's not really all that far. You could do it in 3 hours quite comfortably.
What are you on about?
I think it's time we looked for the girl's dress in her handbag. You can take Ortez.
Ortez? You go off to have tea at the consulate, and I go fishing for a handbag with Ortez.
Feeling better now?
Oh, much better, thanks. Where's the towel?
I'll dry your back for you.
Oh, that's perfect. Wonderful.
I hate to say this, but you don't think it was all a bit too easy?
Easy? 2 solid days up to our waist in water half the time, and you call it easy?
You don't think you were meant to find these things?
Well, that's not the way it seems to me. The bag was under an old bridge off the auto route, and the clothes were stuffed down a filthy garage litter bin. What do you think was in the handbag?
I've no idea.
A Luger pistol.
And what was she doing with that?
Well, she liked guns. Had a morbid interest in them, that's clear. 2 more at home. Justified it to herself, perhaps, by making a thing out of needing protection by herself in a car in a naughty foreign country. Carrying it around, it excited her.
So what do you think happened?
Well, it's clear enough. I'd have thought. Colin Armitage dumped the body on Parr.
But why?
I don't know why, and I don't want to know. All this why is the magistrate's worry. Either for cover, as originally thought, only sort of, double bluff, do you see? Maybe some obscure malice or resentment. The father, being a judge, might have been much too respectable and self-satisfied for the boy's taste. How does one know? Interrogation will bring it out.
So, is the boy supposed to have followed her to Tours and dumped the dress in the dustbin to implicate the family further? Surely the dress would have stayed unrecognized, but for the chance of the cop you went to see in Caen actually meeting her. It all sounds most unlikely to me.
Well, there's still a lot that is obscure, but that's often the way.
So what are the English going to make of this peculiar tale?
Well, they're not going to be best pleased.
Won't the boy do a bunk?
As Richard sees it, the others are surety for the boy's good behaviour. He'll be seeing them. It's not my job. He's getting ready for those English sarcasms. You know, like the EC's chief contribution to the British Isles being rabies, and preparing to be devastatingly mild in return. Well, if you persist in sending us barefoot nymphomaniacs with guns, you know, that sort of thing.
Oh, she was more than that. I got to know something of her drawing her face.
But Richard isn't going to issue a mandate. You can't very well drag these people handcuffed across France. Polite notes will be in order, asking them to produce themselves at the commissariat on their way home. We'll let them come here in their own good time.
The Armitage family is expected to arrive sometime this evening. The press are having a field day. Richard even found a gang of reporters camping out on his doorstep when he got home last night.
And where are they going to stay?
The Albion again. Mr. Green's sorting all that out.
It gets more fantastic every hour. They've sent a man down from the embassy in Paris to take charge of the diplomatic niceties. He's been with the examining magistrate all the morning negotiating terms.
Terms?
Under which the family will agree to talk.
And what have they decided?
They will make a formal disclaimer of any knowledge of Letitia Toth. Will supply any information required on one condition.
And what's that?
That the examination will not take place on police premises. So we've booked your suite at the Holiday Inn.
But look, I thought that you were...
No, not a bit of it, old boy. You're the one who speaks English. We don't want an interpreter involved in all this.
And you don't know a woman called Letitia Toth?
No, never met her.
Can you be quite sure of that?
I am quite sure of that.
Now, in your statement, you mentioned staying the night in a country hotel near Deauville, but you couldn't recall the name.
That's right.
Well, we found the hotel.
Bully for you.
And the hotelier recognised you from the description given him. You registered under the name of Robert Maxwell. Why the false name?
Is it illegal?
It's not illegal unless there's an attempt to mislead an official inquiry.
Call it discretion, then.
Well, rest assured that we'll be discreet when we decide that it has nothing to do with our inquiry. A woman stayed the night with you.
I don't know her name.
Then how do you know it wasn't Letitia Toth?
What makes you think it was?
She booked that evening into a hotel in Cannes. She didn't occupy her room. She vanished and wasn't seen again until she reappeared in a car in Tours, leaving some luggage in Cannes.
Oh, I know nothing about that. I saw the body of a woman outside that restaurant. Long black hair. I didn't see her face then, but I knew I'd never seen her. Some days later, I read in the paper that she'd been identified as somebody called Toth. Means nothing to me.
Now, let me get this straight. You admit that you spent the night in this hotel with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
You say it couldn't have been Letitia Toth because the woman you were with didn't have long black hair.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know this woman's name. Well, you'll agree, it all seems a bit weird.
Well, it may seem weird to you, but it has nothing to do with your affair.
Well, since none of us are sure of her real name, we can't be sure of that either, can we? But you are assured of my discretion. Now, tell us what this woman looked like, how you met her, what she said, all about her, in fact.
I know nothing about her. There's no need for the old-fashioned moral stuff. We met casually in the casino. We fancied each other, so we made a date. All one to both of us, I dare say, if we never met again. Are you doubting what I say?
All I'm trying to do is disentangle you from this coincidence that Letitia Toth was in Cannes and suddenly she turns up in your father's car a day or two later. Now, okay, you met this mysterious lady by arrangement in your hotel. And your statement says that you picked the hotel at random.
Yeah, well, I admit that wasn't the truth. But see it my way. I could see you asking a lot of questions about where I was and the rest, so I thought I'd better cover up. A woman like that, picked up, well, I got the impression she'd done things of that sort before.
And it's not the kind of thing you'd want your family to know about.
Well, I've no particular reason to keep this business quiet on my own account, but I'd just as soon you don't go and tell them everything I've said. The old man does have his position to keep up. If this kind of thing is made public, it wouldn't do him any good. My mother would be upset. That's why I gave a false name. I often do. Being the son of a judge isn't necessarily the big social advantage you might think.
Well, don't worry, I won't tell tales on you.
That's why I kept apart from them. On holiday, I mean. I just came along here for the grub. Look where it gets me.
I don't know what questions you can possibly find to put to me.
Odd ones. Do you like driving the car?
Yes, I do. It's a lovely car. Big but manageable.
And you've done most of the driving?
Turn and turn about with my mother. None of us likes driving here, I may say. French drivers are simply filthy, rude and selfish.
Perfectly true. They are. But what we're concerned with is this business of Miss Toth's clothes strewn along the road. The inference is that somebody followed you closely enough to observe your movements. Now, do you use the rear-view mirror much when you drive?
Oh, of course I do. Look, this has puzzled us no end. I mean, a strange car one doesn't notice, but if it stayed close, following one throughout the whole morning, one would be bound to notice. We stopped where we said for petrol, and we stopped a couple of times to look at the view and that bridge over the water. Well, why pretend? My father went behind a tree, and I suppose I don't mind saying I did too.
I appreciate your openness.
So, if a car was following us, we'd have been bound to notice.
Now, in your earlier statement, you felt pretty sure that the car was never left altogether unattended.
Oh, well, it's terribly difficult being questioned on things that had no great importance at the time, and one starts to wonder. But really, you know, we'd have locked the car. I mean, it was full of luggage, and one has to be terribly careful. That time in Tours, we were tired, and the young man with the luggage was obliging. We'd never have left the car open. It's all too silly for belief. It's been a great worry to my father, and it's nearly driven my mother batty. Look, you must believe me. Somehow there's been a very hateful and skillful trick.
Are you awake? I met your judge today and his wife.
How? Where?
I was in the Jesuit garden drawing. I wanted to get it in early spring before the ruins get covered in green. They came over to look at what I was doing. I knew who they were immediately. We had lunch together.
You did what?
Well, not exactly lunch. We sat at a table on the pavilion terrace. I ate my sandwiches, and the old boy ordered a bottle of the very best wine to checkmate the waiter who was being a bit snotty. We stayed quite a long time.
What did you talk about?
Oh, general things. Nationalism, you know. I got very Czech. They're very cautious about Germany, but they find it infinitely better than France. One has to understand them. France is the traditional enemy.
And did they say anything about...
They were worried. Oh, it goes deep. They won't speak of it, but it's all the time behind their eyes. She said quite unselfconsciously that they were stuck here as witnesses to a homicide investigation and that this was horrid, and she supposed I'd read about it in the papers. I couldn't tell lies. I hope you're not going to be cross with me.
Well, I don't suppose it could do any harm.
I said simply that I was married to a French cop, the one who Richard had delegated to take their statements.
Yeah, and then?
It brought them up short, of course. But they were too nice to be hostile. The old boy said rather splendidly that he refused utterly to let that colour the feelings of friendly simplicity on which this acquaintance had been based, and that my candour did me honour.
Oh, so it does.
It's no virtue. I can't conceal things.
Well, can't you see? Honesty promotes honesty. You've done me a good turn.
I was so afraid I'd made a mess of things.
It's indecent, I suppose, to say I couldn't help my surprise at learning that an artist is the wife of a police officer. But I can't help saying that it increases my respect for you.
Thank you. Lady Armitage,
I am sorry I was so rude on our first meeting. But it all seemed too trivial and nonsensical then. You can understand our showing impatience. Now it all seems a horrible trap. What on earth can I say in answer to your questions?
Well, of course, my wife's meeting you doesn't change my attitude to the job I've been told to do. But it can change the approach. Now, if I might, I'd like to ask you more about background. On both sides of the Channel, there's a tradition, isn't there, of service to the state, of integrity or loyalty to ideals.
Yes, of course, you're right. And it exists. Or did. We were brought up to believe that we owed ourselves to an ideal of responsibility, a dedication almost religious. That sounds quite laughable nowadays, but I assure you it was, sir.
Well, it's general police thinking. I'm not expressing a personal opinion, to deplore the decay of individual responsibility. Everything now gets shoved onto the shoulders of the state. But the more the state does, the more we want it to do somehow. But it can't take over a family's duties.
Oh, I agree.
Responsible means answerable.
What do you mean?
It's a stupid play on words, it's nothing more. Would you like some coffee, Lady Armitage?
I've just had some, thank you.
Now, I'd like to go over this timetable.
I thought we were finished.
Well, there's an awkward gap that bothers us. We lose sight of this woman alive and calm, and we catch sight of her again, here, dead.
I never laid eyes on her either way. You'll simply have to take my word for that.
Of course. She was driving a small red Japanese car. Here's a colour photograph of it.
So, what exactly do you want to ask me?
Well, I'm not sure that I want to ask you anything, Sir James. Let me speak to you frankly. I don't like this job. It makes me look a fool, and, well, nobody enjoys that. How does a minor police official go about discussing points of law with a man of your position and experience? He can't. But when he has to, he does.
I'm not on the bench here. I'm a private citizen. I take your point, of course. A man such as myself can never be wholly private.
But unfortunately, I'm obliged to confuse the public and the private person. On the one side, I've something personal to say. On the other, I'm a policeman talking in technical terms to a magistrate upon a judicial point.
Making a submission, we'd call it. You needn't hesitate. Respect for a submission is the first of our duties.
Then I'll dispense with the preliminaries. We think it possible that your son made the acquaintance of the woman called Letitia Tarth and spent the night with her in a hotel near Caen. We think she then decided to approach you perhaps to put some pressure on you. She was a few weeks pregnant. Now, your own strong views about abortion are on public record. As a motive for getting rid of her, assuming a threat of scandal or disclosure, well, it seems unlikely. Motive, though, isn't always a good basis for inquiry. And I think that that's where the English police officers perhaps went astray.
Is there any more of this?
Somebody, who can only be called a sociopathic personality, thought it amusing to sow a lot of false trails to implicate your family. Now, to our minds, that removes all possibility of a professional killing. No professional would take these fantastic risks of being noticed, putting their body in the boot of your car, planting clothes and stuff all along the road. It was intended to cause great embarrassment and humiliation.
And you're implying that my son did this?
To my mind, he showed his hand by arranging to be around at the time the body was discovered. He seemed amused by it all. Acutely disturbing piece of luggage for a judge. Small but exquisite embarrassment for the French police and even for the French government. With quite simple resources, an international incident is created. It's not a homicide. It's a vast black joke.
I'm bound to point out that your premises are exceedingly fragile. You don't even place your presumed author at the scene of the crime, assuming that it took place in Tours.
I'm only too aware of that.
You presume a physical relationship of some weeks' standing between my son and this girl, but no trace of a meeting has been shown to exist.
Well, with respect, I don't think my English colleagues have tried very hard. Now, I don't blame them. They'd naturally be most reluctant to believe anything that would affect a man in your public position. I believe all this was present in the mind of the crime's author. He counted on it. I think he counted also on the family relationship. How could any member of his family admit to knowledge or suspicion? He has us over a barrel. Well, except, really, yourself.
I see. Your inference, pertinent if unattractive, is that in these circumstances I must have realized the significance of the discoveries, and faced with the inevitable disgrace and ruin disclosure must bring, I chose silence. Is that correct?
I'm obliged by the circumstances to put it to you formally and await an answer. No law of ours obliges you to give one.
I see. I find myself in the presence of a police officer convinced of my son's guilt in a homicide and of my felonious concealment of guilty knowledge. A pretty notion you have formed of my family. An extra turn of the screw is that all this should have taken place in France, a country which, as you cannot fail to have observed, is not high in my esteem. You turn the tables on me since I am low in your own esteem. My breath is taken away. Allow me a moment. Tell me, have you discussed this theory with your colleagues? Or the, how do you call him, the magistrate of instruction?
Commissaire Richard knows my thoughts, but he hasn't taken me into his confidence regarding his own. As for the magistrate, I've told him nothing. He wouldn't give a lot of weight to unsupported conclusions by an obscure inspector.
It seems to me, Mr. Castang, that your theory, unsupported by evidence, fails to meet the tests a court, that is to say an English court, would insist on applying. In fact, I am bound to tell you that my own opinion upon the bench would be that there is no case to answer. The Director of Public Prosecutions, very roughly the equivalent of your Chamber of Accusation, would, I think, have reached the same conclusion before me.
It won't get as far as any Chamber of Accusations. If it reaches the magistrate at all, it will only be in the formal sense that he declares further proceedings void. My own superior, Commissaire Richard, would apply your own argument to my submission.
You have put to me, Mr. Castang, a classic enigma, classically described in an excellent book left, alas, unfinished, by a writer who had some acquaintance with the law, Robert Louis Stevenson.
Well, he means nothing to me, I'm sorry to say.
Weir of Hermiston. You should look it up. The name is that of a hanging judge, known for his brutal and peremptory manner in court. His son is shocked by his father's apparent callousness in sentencing a criminal to execution, and is moved to public protest. The son is banished to a remote country existence, where, as a result of various incidents involving a country girl, he is accused of murder. It seems to have been the author's intention that the son should come to trial in his father's court, and be sentenced to death. But Stevenson died before completing it.
I see.
In the relationship between father and son, there may be some analogy, but there is no parallel with this situation in which I now find myself. There is, as I've said, no legal case to answer.
I understand that.
However, I would like to give this whole matter some further thought. I ask for some hours of reflection to postpone the conclusion of this exchange for reasons of my own. Have you any objections?
None whatever.
Then let us agree a postponement for 24 hours.
Certainly, Sir James. Tomorrow at this time?
It seems to have been Stevenson's intention that the whole thing should prove too much for the hanging judge, and that he should die of shock.
Well, we've been keeping a careful eye on the old boy since, of course.
What's he been doing?
Well, only this evening he took a long walk down to the Restaurant de la Bourse.
Alone?
Alone. He ate a steak, drank half a bottle of wine, and walked all the way back to his hotel.
So what now?
Oh, go to bed, sleep. Wait for tomorrow.
But are you really certain that...
Oh, no. Castang.
Slight drama over the boy, I'm afraid. Thought you'd better know.
Colin Armitage.
Yeah, he drove out to the Rancho Notorious. Do you know the place? It's a disco.
I know it. I wouldn't be seen dead there. What did he do?
Drank too much, turned his car over on the way back.
Is he hurt?
No, not really. Bit bruised. We're in city limits, so the urban brigade has him. He's over the odds on alcohol, naturally. Driving dangerously. Nobody else involved, which is lucky, but he was a bit saucy. What do you want me to tell them?
No problem. Let them take him in and book him. Once he's in the tank, tell them that we'll want him. So, well, spin things out. Lots of paperwork and all that. Keep hold of him until Richard decides whether to take him in. Oh, and make sure the judge is informed. Doesn't matter if you have to wake him up. I want you to make absolutely certain that he knows all about it.
Good morning.
Oh, hello.
Forgive me for staring. I was interested to see how your picture was coming along.
Not very well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
I distracted you, I'm afraid.
No. Why don't you sit down?
Oh, thank you.
I can't seem to get to the essence of it all somehow. I keep complicating things. It ought to be quite simple, really, a bit like human behavior.
You interest me.
Of course, you're a judge.
Obliged to view complicated situations.
And to simplify them. Like this case of murder. It's really very simple, surely.
Go on.
The police think it's your son. They've built up a complicated theory. They're having trouble digesting it.
And you have a simple theory?
Simpler? I never saw the girl, but they gave me her photographs and asked me to make a sketch of her as she would have been. I was very pleased when a policeman in car recognized her from my picture. He understood her, I think.
And what was his conclusion?
He just saw her as a threat to him at that moment. And cops have an instinct for the troublemaker or trouble magnetizer.
A kind of natural attractor.
I saw her as he saw her.
Pray go on.
Laetitia. Joy. You met her, didn't you?
Is that what you think?
I think she was a dangerous person who loved to complicate things, to entangle, to entice, to entrap people. I think that she got you into a complicated situation that suddenly became intolerable to you. Untenable might be a better word. And to simplify things in a hurry, you found you had to kill her.
Really?
But if I'm wrong, then you can tell me.
What I have not been able to understand is why she hated me, as she plainly did, and sought to entrap me. I have even wondered whether my son... I cannot believe he knew what had happened, but it was almost as if he were amused.
A little while ago, a wise old policeman came round to see me. He told me not to go out at night. That is the time of the power of darkness. The police go out, they have to. They are part of it. The Night Lords, he called them.
You believe in the powers of darkness?
In Satan? Certainly. Not this modern, morbid superstition chattering about exorcisms, but in the evil that is in people. I have advice for if you'll take it.
What is it?
Go to the police. To my husband. To Commissaire Richard. They know a lot about good and evil. They go out at night.
He's here. What? Who's here?
The judge.
But we weren't due to meet until this afternoon. Well, why's he come here? I thought he'd only see us at the Holiday Inn.
He says he wants to talk to you.
Well, yes, but wouldn't it be better if you...
No, you talk to him. You can use my office.
I've been talking to your wife. Let's do away with preliminaries, shall we? I find myself in a position I cannot support. Whether or not you guessed as much, whether the suspicions you expressed yesterday were designed to put pressure on me, no matter. You owe me no explanation either.
If I understand you correctly, you are confessing to this crime. Is that right?
It is difficult to know where to begin. I wish to make a point. I do not seek to protect members of my family, but equally I cannot allow them to be placed in jeopardy by attempts to protect me.
Which has been the case. I should think I could get you assurance that they would be immune from further action, provided that we have no false information from here on.
I should like to see them freed of all blame.
Well, I'm afraid I haven't the powers to make bargains. That's for the examining magistrate. I take it that your family, whatever they knew or guessed, kept silent out of loyalty to you. Is that it? No more than that?
My daughter Patience got rid of the girl's car, knowing and suspecting nothing.
Well, that involves much that worried us. Nobody will hold that against her. Your daughter drove the car down and parked it in Tours.
I told her simply that the car belonged to a friend of Colin's, who had asked us to see that it was put in a safe place to be picked up later.
Which convinced her, after the discovery of the body, that her brother was the author of the crime?
I'm afraid that it might be so.
Shall we go back to the night before?
I think we have to go back further still.
So we go back to Bayeux?
Yes, Bayeux. We were looking at the famous tapestry. People had their eyes only on the walls. The girl put a piece of paper into my hand.
And do you have this piece of paper?
Fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately, I do. Here.
Thank you. Dear Sir James, as a close, I should say, very close friend of Colin's, it is of great importance that I should be able to have a word with you. I realise the need to be discreet. May I beg of you to meet me in the hotel car park this evening around 9:30? I shall not keep you long.
I imagine you've seen the car park. It's just dimly lit, and people walking to and from it are not noticed. I told my wife I proposed to take a stroll, to digest some rather good claret. I recognised the girl, having noticed her in the tapestry room. There was a slight drizzle, and so we went to a sort of cafe. She asked for a drink, and she took, I think, a brandy. She said she'd had an affair of some months' standing with Colin. I find this to have been quite untrue. He scarcely knew her. She said she wished to marry him. She said, quite sensibly, that she had not wished to be sprung on me without warning, hence this discreet approach. I was somewhat put off by her air of mystery and obvious tension.
Well, a speciality of hers.
She said she had more to tell me. I said that I was tired and wished now to go back to the hotel. She asked me where I would be next day. I told her, very foolishly, the address of the hotel my wife had picked out. She asked me not to mention the meeting to anyone else, as yet. I must admit that she intrigued me. There was plainly more behind this than she said.
Well, it's possible that she wanted a pretext for getting close to you.
You may be right.
Plainly, she felt confident of having her hooks into Colin. She spent the night with him in Deauville. Well, he'll have to fill us in on that.
Yes. Well, I must come to the point. There's no help for it. That night in Tours, I drank a little too much of that attractive Chinon wine. It must have contributed to my recklessness. I repeated to my wife my excuse of wanting a stroll. She was tired and a little irritable. She said she was going to bed with a sleeping pill.
Can we put it that you felt you had a certain freedom to stay out?
I think you can. The car park, you've seen it, of course, is some distance from the hotel and screened by trees. It was a cold, foggy night. She was in her car. What in heaven's name possessed me?
Everybody, even after she was dead, remarked upon her extreme vitality and great powers of attraction.
Yes, perhaps. And powers of darkness. I proposed, as before, a stroll, but it was really too cold. I didn't want to sit in her cramped little car. Half mechanically I tried the door of my own car. I proposed getting into it. I think I cannot adequately describe the events of the following hour.
Well, you needn't, though. I'm afraid the judge would insist, but Don't let's bother with that now. Can we say that she seduced you, or that you seduced her?
I think that there can be no doubt. She was wearing no underclothes.
I'm afraid that she was both deliberately amusing herself and quite certainly looking for leverage over you. It had worked easily with Colin. How much more exciting to repeat the experience with his father and a judge.
May God forgive me, but I know payment will be exacted.
And then?
After, I cannot call it love, she gave an odd, hysterical laugh. She opened her handbag. She had a pistol. She pointed it at me, close to. She said, I can't recall her exact words, after love, death, or it might have been love is a strong sensation, death is another. I can't recall.
What did you do?
I was very frightened. It was a kind of reflex action. I got an arm round her neck. She started to scream.
No, it's all right, Sir James.
I'm sorry. May I have a glass of water?
I'm obliged to place you under custody, Sir James.
I'm afraid that only judges have the right to the title. As of now, I am no longer Sir James.
The Spanish say that man is the most honourable of titles.
I'm sure you're aware that there is no bail on a homicide charge. Regulations state that you should be deprived of your tie, your shoelaces, and anything else that could serve as a ligature. I have not the faintest intention of respecting that. Rather than humiliate you, I rely upon your integrity.
Thank you, Commissaire. That is most considerate.
The examination will not be a long one. Both the examining magistrate and the Court of Assize will take the widest and most liberal view, in the absence, that is, of any illegal chicanery. I hope your embassy people have the sense to see this.
You need have no cause for concern on any of these grounds, Commissaire. The last act of my career as a judge will be to see that justice is satisfied.
Thank you, Mr. Armitage.
Monsieur Castaing, I would be grateful if you could convey a message to your charming wife.
Of course.
Thank her for telling me about the Night Lords and for sending me to them.
In The Night Lords, by Nicholas Freeling, dramatised by Michael Bakewell, Keith Barron played Henri Castaing, Richard Vernon, Sir James, John Horsley, Richard, Aditha Brichter, Vera, Mary Allen, Lady Armitage, Simon Treves, Colin, Emma Gregory, Patience, Brian Miller, Lasserre, Danielle Allen, Fausta, Angus Wright, Thomas, Paul Downing, Green, Danny Schiller, Baudet, Ben Onwukwe, Townsend, Ian Lindsay, the Hotel Patron, Michael Kilgareth, Robin, Elizabeth Kelly, Madame Bissac, and Timothy Carlton, Larkins. The play was directed by Matthew Walters.
Rumpole and the Right to Privacy by John Mortimer. This episode Rumpole leaves the Old Bailey to defend an editor of a local newspaper, who is accused of breaching a successful businessman's right to privacy. It features Timothy West as Horace Rumpole, and West's real-life wife Prunella Scales, who appeared as Rumpole's wife Hilda.
Rumpole and the Right to Privacy by John Mortimer, with Timothy West as Horace Rumpole and Prunella Scales as his wife, Hilda.
Please, Rumpole, don't whistle at breakfast.
Oh, sorry, Hilda. I just feel unexpectedly cheerful. It must be the smell of the toast.
I'm trying to read my newspaper.
Don't let me stop you.
Full of people's private lives.
It usually is.
There's no one, Rumpole, to be allowed to lead a private life anymore. I told them at my bridge club they just won't leave anyone alone. Everything has to get into the papers.
You mean we're to expect headlines in the tabloids? Hilda Rumpole bids 4 hearts, full story in the Sun?
I know you like to make a joke of everything, but things are getting serious when I'm actually rung up by a journalist. He wanted to know all about you, Rumpole.
Really? What did he want to know?
All about the life of a well-known criminal barrister. What you did in your spare time, for instance.
Did you tell him that I spent my evening enjoying recreational drugs in the company of lap dancers?
Certainly not. I said it was absolutely no business of his, and you didn't want anything written about you in the papers. You don't, do you, Rumpo?
Didn't I? I had, I'm afraid, felt a little thrill of pleasure as she who must uttered the words well-known criminal barrister. It was not, of course, entirely unexpected. Since several recent successful cases, my fame had spread far beyond Equity Court and the Old Bailey, so I would not have objected forcefully to a well-written profile in some respectable broadsheet, headlined The Great Defender, no doubt with a photograph or mercifully drawn caricature. I could imagine the frisson of jealousy at the next Chambers meeting, tinged with gratitude for what I'd done for the image of the Old Bailey hack.
Rumpo, you don't want anything written about you in the papers, do you?
Well, it would rather depend on how it was done.
It wouldn't depend on that at all, Rumpo. There are no circumstances in which I'd allow journalists into our mansion flat to sneer at our furniture, make fun of our knick-knacks. Privacy is sacred, Rumpo. I'm sure you agree.
Up to a point is what I might have said. But to save time and for the avoidance of controversy, I kept it to... You're quite right, Hilda.
Of course I'm right. I told this journalist, aren't there enough wars and natural disasters without you having to come worrying us for something to put in your paper?
So, not being a war or natural disaster, I reconciled myself to the status of a member of the newspaper-buying public who never gets profiled or caricatured or mentioned unless he becomes involved in a salacious scandal or features as the victim of a violent crime. These thoughts were uppermost in my mind at that moment, not only because of what Hilda told me, but because I'd become involved in a case about the denial of human rights and the protection of the privacy of a very rich man indeed.
You do invasion of privacy cases, don't you, Mr. Rumpole?
Invasion of privacy? Yes, of course. It's my daily bread, if you'll pardon the expression. I was speaking with my client, Mr. Rankin, editor of a local paper, the Chivering Argus. He was a small, bird-like man, bright eyes and a head cocked to one side, who sat up very straight, with his arms folded, as though he'd just fluttered down and alighted on the edge of the chair opposite. Well, now, whose privacy have you been invading?
Sir Mike Smedley. You'll know about him, of course.
No, I'm afraid I've never heard of the fellow.
Oh, he's born of a poor family in Birmingham, pulled himself up by his bootstraps, started in second-hand cars. Then he decided more people needed sleep than needed cars, so he started Smedley's Slumberwell Beds. He promised nights of pure delight. He made a fortune. So he moved out of Birmingham and bought a country house in Chivering.
I understand from your solicitor that you never really got on with him, did you, Mr. Rankin?
He wanted to buy our little local paper, and he got quite angry when I refused to sell. He tried to bribe me with more money and threatened to close us down.
I think I remember him now. Wasn't he the fellow who said schools should teach life skills and not Shakespeare? Sounds to me like someone who ought to have his privacy invaded.
Thank you, Mr. Rumpole. That's just the view we took.
Which part of his privacy did you invade, exactly?
A photograph of Sir Mike in a fairly compromising position appeared in the Argus, Mr. Rumpole. They're asking for huge damages, enough to bankrupt the paper.
And your motive for publishing the offending photograph?
We wanted to embarrass him. I'll freely admit that. Our way of getting our own back, so our readers could have a laugh at Sir High and Mighty Mike, the local celebrity who thinks everything's for sale.
You're saying you published the photograph just to get a laugh?
Yes, but with a brassiere on his head. Can you imagine what the chap at the Stock Exchange would say?
I can. I was beginning to get the message. The editor was going to prove a highly unsatisfactory witness. His sense of humour seemed to have come out of some long-defunct boys' comic.
Yeah, just a jolly jape, you see, Mr. Rumpole. And then bish-bash-bosh, we landed with this writ.
You say your nephew took the photograph?
Young Jim. He'd gone to the Caribbean in his gap year after school. And Sir Mike had a holiday home in St. Lucia.
Of course, I'd have expected nothing less.
Jim was working in the Sugar and Spice bar when the great big cheese himself took the whole place over for a party with his chums.
A private party. You do realise he'd made the management sign a contract. No photographs, no press, no divulging of the guest list.
Well...
Yes. They had agreed to complete confidentiality.
Well, of course, no one realised Jim knew all about Sir Mike. Jim was interested in taking pictures of wildlife on the island, so he had his camera with him.
So he was all prepared to photograph the wildlife in the Sugar and Spice bar.
He thought it was a great wheeze, and he managed it very cleverly. Of course, it was quite late, and the party had been going on some time, and they'd all had a skinful.
And young Jim, apart from his talent for snapping local fauna, did he know that the management had signed a contract, no photographs allowed?
Oh, he knew that, but he did it as a prank. He knew how much his picture would delight his old uncle.
And as a prank, his old uncle published this picture in the paper.
You've got it, Mr. Rumpole. How could I resist the temptation?
I really don't know. But if you could have, you might have saved yourself an action for breach of confidentiality, invasion of privacy, and all the trimmings.
Yeah. But have a look at the photograph. I mean, look, here he is. Look, I mean, they're totally unsuspecting. Look at that. I mean, can you imagine all these chaps in the financial...
Mr. Rankin handed me the photograph. Sir Michael Smedley, the great business tycoon, was a large, beefy-looking individual with his hair brushed forward as though surrounding a monk's tonsure. He was grinning happily and strutting in some sort of celebratory dance, clearly enjoying his private party. His dancing partner, whom I took to be a darkly beautiful local girl, was dancing with much finger-snapping and flashing of white teeth. She was naked from the waist up, and her sizable brassiere, in that golden moment immortalised by young Jim's camera, was draped about Sir Michael Smedley's ears.
It's a good joke, you have to admit, Mr. Rumpole.
Perhaps, but not the sort of joke your average tycoon wants his friends and neighbours to laugh at over their breakfast table. The bird-like editor had not long gone when my room in chambers was visited by Claude Erskine Brown, hopeless advocate and great opera lover. Married to Phillida, once my pupil and the Portia of our chambers, now a scarlet and ermine High Court judge. He came alone and palely loitering, and, as ever, in some sort of trouble of an amorous nature.
Rumpole, I hear you're doing an invasion of privacy case.
Invasion of privacy, breach of confidence, outrageous infringement of human rights? Yes, Claude. That's the sort of practice I carry on these days. I've left the petty larcenies and the public bar affrays to Old Bailey hacks like you.
Yes, but in fact, I'm very much afraid that my confidence is about to be seriously invaded.
Oh, then you come to the right chap. Take a seat. Tell me who's invaded you.
Mercy Granderson.
Who's Mercy Granderson?
Rumpole, I can't believe it. You don't know who Mercy Granderson is?
Afraid not.
Don't you watch Shopping Mall on the telly?
Never.
She's the one who owns the boutique, whose marriage with Barry from the sock shop broke up and who's now having a terrible time with Bertrand from the Bienvenue Bistro.
Well, it's enormously interesting, Claude, but how does any of that threaten your privacy?
Shopping Mall doesn't, but Mercy Granderson does.
An actress?
And author. That's the terrible thing, Rumpole. She's got a book coming out next month. It's been advertised in the Telegraph.
A history of shopping?
Unfortunately not. It's her life story. A wandering star. How Mercy Granderson, born Mary Grimes, fourth daughter of a Wisbech plumber, rose to become Queen of the Soaps. In this touching memoir, Mercy reveals the heartbreaks behind the glitter of show business.
So what are you worrying about?
She reveals the heartbreaks, Rumpole.
What's that got to do with you? There was a pause, during which a certain amount of wrestling for the soul of Erskine Brown seemed to be taking place. When the struggle was over, he allowed himself to speak.
Oh, I'd better confess to you, Rumpole.
Well, you probably should if you want my advice.
It was years ago. I'd gone up to Grimsby to do a lengthy fraud.
Well, that's forgivable.
And one evening, I went to the theatre. The local rep. I went to see Private Lives by Noel Coward. A young girl in a white dress came out on a moonlit balcony.
In Grimsby?
No, the south of France. I was totally knocked out, Rumpole. Stunned, I suppose. I made a complete fool of myself. I waited for her at the stage door. We went out for supper every night for the rest of the week. In the end, I asked her back to the hotel.
Oh, dear Claude. You know, you really are rather sweet.
I'm telling you all this because I need your help desperately. She told me she thought I was rather sweet.
There's no accounting for taste, is what I might have said, but I didn't. Instead, I asked, so what happened exactly?
It happened.
It?
Yes, it. I have to tell you, Rumpole, it was one of the most important things in my life. The next morning we said goodbye on Grimsby Station, but I still think about it.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Claude. Darling Claude. I'll never forget you.
When there's nothing in court and Philly's away on circuit, or when life seems completely uneventful, I think about her, Rumpole. I get a great deal of quiet pleasure from thinking about Mercy.
Darling Claude, I'll never forget you.
And I'm very sure you do the same.
I take it you met her from time to time after your night of passion?
Never again, Rumpole, not ever.
So it was a last goodbye?
I'll never forget it. On Grimsby Station. You see, I just got married to Philly. It was a long time ago, of course, before we had the children.
And your wife, the learned judge, knows nothing about it?
Nothing, Rumpole. She's going to find out when Mercy's book is serialized in the Daily Post, which Philly demolishes every morning at breakfast.
And you don't think she'll be best pleased?
Oh, she'll bring it up every time we have an argument. She'll tell me she can never trust me again. She'll never let me forget it.
Well, naturally, when you parted on Grimsby Station...
Yes, tell me. Give me your opinion.
You obviously asked Mercy to sign a solemn undertaking, promising never verbally or in writing, or by any form of technical communication which might be invented in the future, to divulge to anyone the events which had occurred between you and the soap star in that Grimsby hotel.
Well,
Well, no doubt you had such a document prepared. Did you get her to sign it in front of witnesses?
No, don't be ridiculous, Rumpole. Of course I didn't.
Then I'm afraid your legal position is distinctly dicey. Not to put too fine a point on it, Claude, I would say you were up shit creek and deprived of a paddle. No case of breach of confidence. Look here. Are you sure she's written about it? Have you read it?
Well, it's not out yet, I told you. But of course she's written about Grimsby. It was one of the greatest moments of our lives. Do you think I'd be right to tell Philly? Should I warn her?
As we lawyers say, don't jump before you get to the stile. The world is full of nervous husbands leaping about in level fields, thinking that they've got to clear obstructions which aren't actually there.
Oh, dear.
I suppose it might be possible to keep the story in question out of Dame Phillida's paper.
Oh, Rumpole. Would you do that for me? As my legal adviser, would you try? They'll listen to you, now you're briefed in the great Sir Mike's privacy case.
Mm-hmm. Who steals my purse, steals trash. 'Tis something, nothing. But he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him, and makes me poor indeed. The words of Iago had brought me to the door of Pomeroy's, and as I stepped up to it, there was a small flash of light in the surrounding dampness, and I saw a girl with red hair, wearing a blue anorak, point a camera in my direction. I moved rapidly towards my first glass of Chateau Thames Embankment, and thought no more about it. I had taken my bottle of just tolerable claret to a table in the corner of Pomeroy's when I saw Liz Probert downing a vodka in the company of Mervyn Lockwood, QC, a tall, languid human rights barrister who refused on principle to appear for landlords, police officers, and employers. He gave Liz a light kiss on the forehead and glided off.
Bye-bye, Mervyn.
When he'd gone, Liz joined me with a heavy sigh.
Isn't Mervyn elegant? Isn't he a wonderful barrister?
Well, if that's your idea of being a wonderful barrister. He's not an old taxi cab like me, more like a hired car only available to travel on certain routes for a certain class of person.
Oh, do you think so?
Do you have any secrets you want to keep hidden, Liz?
Why do you say that?
Well, don't worry, most people have, one way or another.
You found out.
Found out what?
You promise you won't tell Mervyn.
Well, of course not, if you don't want me to.
It's just that... Well, I had these old Labour parents. They went on ban the bomb marches. They spent nights outside the South African embassy singing We Shall Overcome.
Mm-hmm.
It's natural to revolt when you're young. You must have felt that too, Rumpole.
Well, I think I felt like revolting all my life.
Oh, there you are then, you see. But mine was a one-off, an act of immature defiance. I'm ashamed of it. I really am.
What is it you're ashamed of? Remind me.
I joined the Conservative Association.
Oh, dear.
It was only for a term. Then I came to my senses. Oh, Rumpole, give me your solemn promise you won't tell Mervyn.
I promise, solemnly.
Thank you, Rumpole.
Liz planted a kiss, which landed slightly to the left of my nose. Looking up from this experience, I saw the red-haired girl in the anorak standing at the bar and looking across at us with considerable interest. Next morning I had a call which took me to the chambers of Hugo Winterton, leading counsel for Sir Michael Smedley and the appointed protector of his privacy.
Bit of a change for you, isn't it, Rumpole? Civilized litigation in the law courts after the rough and tumble of the Old Bailey.
If you call it civilized, hopping about with some girl's brassiere round your ears.
He was relaxing, Rumpole. I expect you relax when you're on holiday, don't you?
Not by prancing around in my wife Hilda's underwear.
Now, look here, Rumpole. No need for a prolonged fight about this, now, is there? I'm sure we could find a fairly painless way out between us.
What was wrong with Hugo Winterton was that there was nothing wrong with him. He was good-looking, middle-aged, a QC who lived a life of impeccable good taste. He slid towards me a mother-of-pearl box containing small cigars.
Okay. Please, do light up. I've absolutely no objection in the world to smoking.
Mm-hmm. Was I being led into some ambush? Probably. However, I couldn't resist the temptation, and I sent a small smoke ring hovering over Hugo Winterton's elegant head.
Naturally, Mike was very upset when that little local paper published the picture. All right, he was making a bit of a fool of himself. We've all got to let our hair down sometimes. What he doesn't want is to have the picture popping up in every blessed newspaper. So, he's got to appear to win this case.
Appear to?
Afraid so. And win so convincingly, it's going to scare off all the other members of our sex-starved, scandal-loving press. So there's got to be an order for a large amount of damages.
How large?
Well, we were thinking in terms of $500,000, just as a warning to others.
Well, I'd better be going. Thanks for the cheroot.
No, wait a minute. Just between ourselves. I believe I could persuade Mike not to enforce the order. I doubt if either the editor or his paper have got the money. Your client will only pay his costs. But, of course, Mike would want some permanent editorial control over the Argus.
You mean he wants to take it over?
Just to ensure it doesn't make any more unprovoked attacks on him.
And that it will advertise his beds.
That might be part of it, of course.
And this order for $500,000 damages?
That would stay in the background.
To be enforced at any time if my client doesn't give Sir Mike exactly what he wants.
Well, it's a possibility, of course. We'd hope it wouldn't come to that.
Well, I'll put it to the editor, but he's a pretty tough sort of character. I'm not sure he'd agree to being in Sir Mike's pocket for the indefinite future.
Do your best with him, my dear old fellow. We don't want to have to waste our time preparing for a fight, do we?
I'm not too worried about that. Perhaps I should have revealed to him that I was on my way to an interview which would be entitled, when it was published, Rumpole the Great Defender. About a week before, to my surprise, and I have to say my delight, I had been rung up by a Gervase Johnson for the Daily Fortress, who wanted to write an article on Rumpole the Great Defender. Better still, the interview was to take place in the expensive Myrtle restaurant, where Mr. Johnson's little tape recorder was found not to work.
Right. 1, 2, 3, testing. Oh, no good. We'll have to go back to the old pencil and notebook. Now, I think what our readers will be interested in, Mr. Rumpole, is how a busy barrister unwinds. You're living on your nerves, aren't you? Will you give us an insight into your private life?
Certainly.
Well, that's very generous of you. I know some people don't like talking about that sort of thing.
Oh, I don't mind at all.
Oh, good for you. Now, carry on, Mr. Rumpole.
When the day's work is done...
And you feel the need to relax completely?
Exactly. I get myself down to Pomeroy's wine bar and put away, let's say, half a bottle of Pomeroy's very ordinary red.
You're a lucky man, Mr. Rumpole.
You think so?
Indeed. The story is you were seen being kissed by a particularly attractive young lady in that particular wine bar.
How do you know that?
Oh, we've been making a few inquiries. We had a photographer out after you. Material for the article.
The young lady in question was my colleague. I'd given her a piece of helpful advice for which she was grateful.
I'm sure she was. I suppose you're not going to tell me how you spent the rest of the evening?
Certainly. I went back to my flat in the Gloucester Road. I had supper with my wife in the kitchen. A chop, I think. And baked jam roll. We watched the 10 o'clock news and went to bed early. That is my private life. There is your story. Make what you like of it.
I'm afraid, my dear Mr. Rumpole, it seems we'll be able to make very little of it.
I'm not Sir Mike Smedley. I don't need to sue anyone for writing about how I spend my evenings.
Ah, yes, Sir Michael. You're going to have a tough time cross-examining him.
I don't know. Perhaps I'll think of something. He must have a weak spot, a chink in his armour.
Everyone's tried to find one. Apparently he's as clean as a whistle. The tabloids tried to pin something on him when he landed that contract for NHS bed.
Oh, yes, there was a suggestion he'd done a deal with Lord Hindle, wasn't there, the health minister, in return for a huge secret subsidy to party coffers. Wasn't that the story?
Yes, the story collapsed before it hit the presses. Sir Michael didn't even have to sue for damages. He told me all about it when I interviewed him. The truth was, he said, he'd never even met Lord Hindle. Never even been in the same room with him, let alone spoken to him.
And, of course, Sir Michael's not the sort to fraternise with politicians.
No more than any other wealthy, successful businessman, I should think, Mr. Rumpole.
Claude Erskine-Brown came into my room, just as I was trying, with diminishing success, to think of a reasonable defence in the case of Smedley versus the Chivering Arcus.
Thank you for your advice, Rumpole. I'm so glad I didn't take it.
Which advice was that, Erskine-Brown?
You asked me not to tell Philly about Mercy the actress. You said I shouldn't jump before I got to the stile. Well, I jumped, Rumpole. I leapt high up in the air, and it's been a huge success. She doesn't mind at all.
You told her about Grimsby?
I did. And she said she'd read Mercy's book with interest. She was truly glad I'd had such a romantic past. Quite frankly, she said, before this, she'd never have believed me capable of a great passion.
Oh, well, that's fine, then.
Yes. Now, by the way, Philly's trying that case of yours.
Oh.
She says she thinks it's absolutely terrible that your newspaper chap should have published pictures of Sir Michael Smedley at a private party. She's a great admirer of Sir Michael's achievement as a self-made man. She tells me she's going to give you a rough ride.
Thank you for those words of warning, Erskine-Brown. Most kind.
Forewarned is forearmed, Rumpole.
I had, of course, told Rankin, the editor, about Hugo Winterton's offer. I explained that the order for heavy damages wouldn't be enforced, provided that he didn't do anything else to annoy the great Sir Michael Smedley, and asked what our answer should be.
Tell him, Mr. Rumpole, to save his breath to cool his porridge.
All right, then, we go on. And on we went, into the law courts in the Strand. Mrs. Justice Erskine Brown was trying the case alone and without a jury. I do wish I could have thought of a reasonable defence. However, there I was, standing up in the unfamiliar atmosphere of Queen's Bench Court No. 4. Beside me, Ms. Liz Probert, who was acting as my junior, was ready with her notebook, expectantly waiting for me to lure the witness into a dangerous admission. Sir Michael, are you thoroughly ashamed of what you did that evening at the Sugar and Spice Bar in St. Lucia?
No, Mr. Rumpole, I'm not at all ashamed.
You were capering around with a topless dancer, wearing her brassiere as earmuffs.
That is what the picture shows, yes.
And you're not in the least ashamed of having done that?
It was all good, clean fun. It was in the spirit of the party.
Was it? Were many of your guests wearing articles of underwear on their heads?
Not that I noticed.
Sir Michael's answer, not my question, got a smile from the judge and a ripple of laughter from his legal team. If they had been, you'd have seen nothing wrong with it.
Harmless fun, Mr. Rumpole.
I think Sir Michael has already made that clear, Mr. Rumpole.
Yes, my lady, but he hasn't told us this. If it was all just clean fun and nothing to be ashamed of, what's wrong with everyone who happens to read the Chivering Argus enjoying the photograph?
It was my private party.
Well, even if it was, why on earth have you trundled out this great legal sledgehammer to crack this perfectly harmless little photograph?
Some people, Mr. Rumpole, value their privacy.
I suppose you'll be grateful to accept the answer Her Ladyship has offered you.
I do value my privacy, yes.
Well, let's see how much you really value it. You've given many interviews to various papers with a great deal of information about yourself.
When it was appropriate.
You found it appropriate when you had to deal with intimate details of your private life, didn't you?
Mr. Rumpole, is that a relevant question?
If your ladyship will listen patiently, the relevance will become obvious.
Very well, Mr. Rumpole. You may proceed.
Thank you. When your first marriage ended, did you give an interview to the Daily Post, printed under the headline, "Heartbreak when I broke up with Danielle"?
No, I didn't write the headline, Mr. Rumpole.
No, I know you didn't. But you did say this. Sexually, I believe Danielle and I were perfectly suited. She left because she found the lifestyle of the lead singer of a rock band suited her tastes more than the quiet and secure home life I had provided. Did you say that for publication in a tabloid with a huge circulation?
I may have said something like it.
Something very like it. And then we get how I found true happiness with Susan. Susan was your second wife.
She was, yes.
Sadly, 4 or 5 years later, we get another interview. Money and worldly success are no compensation for a broken heart. Did you give that interview?
I think so, yes.
Well, I can only wish you better luck third time round.
I don't see what my marriages have to do with this case.
I have to say, Mr. Rumpole, neither do I.
Then let me enlighten both you and Her Ladyship. You are trying to get enormous damages, a huge sum of money.
Mr. Rumpole, the amount of damages will be for me to decide. Perhaps tomorrow morning you'll make clear to us just what your defence to the charge of invasion of privacy is. Very well, then. 10:30 tomorrow.
Please be upstanding.
Liz, just remind me, what's a defence to a charge of invasion of privacy?
Usually the public interest.
Public interest? How can I get some of that? When I got home to the mansion flat, the television was on, and a small gnome-like man with close-cut hair and the shadow of a beard was being interviewed. He had my full attention when I heard his name.
Lord Hindle, do you believe in party funding through taxation?
It was Lord Hindle, the one-time party chairman, and now Minister of Health.
I don't think that's what the public wants. We have our supporters giving anything from £500,000 because they're people committed to us. They believe in
Do turn him off, Rumpole. I'm trying to write to Dodo McIntosh, and he's driving me mad.
She who must often used me as her remote control. I duly turned off the sound. Deprived of his voice, his lordship was only a face, but a face I was sure I'd seen somewhere else quite recently. I ran through a long gallery of faces, many of villains, some of respectable citizens, before I suddenly remembered. So I dusted off the old magnifying glass we kept in the drawer of the writing desk and carried out some further search. Then I dialed the home number of Gervase Johnson.
Who on earth are you trying to telephone, Rumpole?
Gervase Johnson, the journalist who wrote my profile for the Fortress.
They never used that profile, did they, Rumpole? I suppose you're just not really in the public interest, are you?
Oh, hello, it's Rumpole.
Hello, Mr. Rumpole. I'm sorry they never used that profile of yours for the Fortress.
No, never mind about my private life. My private life's not the point at the moment. It's the private lives of other people. Now, are you at home?
Certainly am.
Good. I'll come round and see you. I need your help desperately, old darling, and I'm afraid it's going to take some time.
Right you are, Mr. Rumpole.
It did. But I have to say that Gervase, once the situation was explained to him, joined me with enthusiasm. We travelled together to the Fortress offices in Canary Wharf, searched files, got help from the picture desk, and ate bacon and eggs in the all-night canteen. I was lucky to have found in Gervase an old-fashioned journalist, one who was genuinely excited by the idea of discovering the truth. Next morning, I was in the kind of cheerful frame of mind which often prompts me to sing old music-hall songs at breakfast. I hadn't been married for a month or so, when underneath her thumb went Jim. Isn't it a pity that the likes of her should marry with the likes of him?
Quiet, Rumpole. What on earth are you singing for?
I'm singing because I think I might be in the public interest at last.
Mr. Rumpole, I hope you'll deal with the issue of breach of confidence today.
I certainly will, my lady. Sir Michael, can you help me? Your holiday in St. Lucia was a year ago last January.
That's right.
No doubt you went there to get a glimpse of the sun.
Well, we didn't expect to get much of it over here in January, so yes, Mr. Rumpole.
Indeed. And in the following month, your firm won the contract to supply a massive quantity of new beds to National Health hospitals.
We did indeed. And production is going very well. In fact, I'm delighted to say we're ahead of schedule.
Oh, good. There were rumours going round that you got that contract because you gave a massive but unrecorded amount of money to government funds.
There are always those sorts of rumours when there's a big contract.
We need evidence, not mere rumours, Mr. Rumpole.
That is exactly what I mean to provide, your ladyship. Sir Michael, it was suggested that you fixed the deal up with Lord Hindle, party treasurer and trusted political adviser to the government.
I've already stated that there's not a word of truth in that suggestion.
Not a word of truth.
You went further than that, didn't you? You stated that you'd never even met Lord Hindle.
I may have said something like that.
Well, you said exactly that, didn't you? For the first time, the witness looked uncomfortable. He hesitated, looked for help to Hugo Winterton, who was staring with great interest at the ceiling.
I can't be expected to remember everything I said a year ago.
Well, then, let me help you. Do you remember giving an interview to Gervase Johnson for a profile in the Daily Fortress?
Yes, I remember that.
Well, then perhaps you'll listen to what you said on that occasion. I held Gervase's unreliable instrument in my hand. its red light glowing. In it was the tape he had found of the Smedley interview. I pressed a button. The machine was silent.
Shake it!
Whispered Gervais, who was sitting behind me. I did. Still silence.
Hit it then, but not too hard.
I gave the antique device a brisk slap, and it spoke out at last to the court. We heard Gervais's question.
Well, that's all very well, but it's been suggested you did a deal with Lord Hindle and made a big contribution to the party.
No, I've never met Lord Hindle or spoken to him. I had no connection with him whatever before the contract.
That's your voice?
Seems to be.
And it's your voice telling a thumping lie?
Of course it's not a lie.
Is that your answer?
I've already told you that.
Very well. Let's come, if we can, to the night of the party at the Sugar and Spice Bar.
It was my private party.
Exactly. For your friends.
For people I'd invited, yes.
Just take another look at the photograph, will you, Sir Michael? I take it that was your table. You're dancing near it with your headdress, and there's an empty seat.
That was my table, yes.
Just have a look at the other people at your table.
Difficult to see in the shadows.
Just try it. Not too difficult, is it? Can you make out a small man at the table, a man with close-cut hair and the dark shadow of a beard?
You mean next to the tall blonde lady, Mr. Rumpole?
Phillida had got out her magnifying glass and was studying the photograph with interest. That's the one. Your ladyship has it.
Not sure who that is.
Well, then, let me help you. We hadn't wasted our time in the picture department of the fortress. Gervais had got them to blow up the photo of Lord Hindle among the group watching Sir Michael's dance of joy with the brazier.
It's like him, I agree.
It is him. I'm afraid you've got to agree. So, now we know what this case is all about. You don't care who sees you dancing about festooned with underwear, but you didn't want anyone to see that you're a liar who met the party treasurer and no doubt paid him your money and got your contract. That's what we're all here for, isn't it? We're going through this legal farce to protect another bit of political sleaze. Isn't that the truth of the matter? Dame Phillida looked long and hard at the witness, and then turned away from him, as though she could no longer stand the sight of him.
Mr. Rumpole, I take it you are alleging that it's in the public's interest that this photograph should be published, to disclose what may have been an improper agreement about a government contract.
Your ladyship puts it so much more clearly than I could have done.
And I take it you're asking for an adjournment, so you can amend your pleadings to cover these new allegations?
Your ladyship is quite right. That's exactly what I'm asking for.
Court adjourned.
The adjournment turned out to be very short. Hugo Winterton approached me in the corridor.
Rumpole, now look here. It is no good our going on with this. You're only getting further and further up Ship Creek. I'm going to tell the judge that out of respect to an old established family newspaper, we're calling the whole thing off. And, of course, we'll have to pay your costs.
That suits me very well. You tell Dame Phillida that. She's an admirer of Sir Michael Smedley's. She'll be sorry to see him go.
Not so sorry, I think, after his performance this morning. I expect you'll be glad to return to the Old Bailey, won't you?
Away from this almighty sleaze? Yes. It'll be nice to get back to a bit of ordinary, decent crime.
Quite right.
When I got back to my room, I found Claude Erskine Brown slumped in my client's chair. He spoke in a voice of doom.
Oh, hello, Claude. What's up? Sometimes I can't understand Phillida.
The learned judge is subject to sudden mood swings. So what's happened now?
She's absolutely furious about Mercy Grandison's book. It's come out, you know. She sent her clerk out to buy a copy. She said she wanted to read about my great passion.
And now she's cross about what Mercy wrote.
No, she's cross about what Mercy didn't write.
Well, go on, tell me, what didn't Mercy write?
She wrote nothing about me, Rumpole.
Nothing, Claude?
Absolutely nothing. She dealt with her days in the Grimsby Rep in considerable detail, but there was no mention of my name even, and certainly not of the great experience, which has remained with me all my life.
Well, it's possible, isn't it, that she was just being discreet?
You haven't read The Wandering Star, Rumpole. There's absolutely nothing discreet about it. No. Philly thinks she left it out because it wasn't of the slightest importance to her.
Your wife takes a harsh view.
Harsh? She is without pity. This great affair you're so proud of, Claude, she said. You see, your girlfriend's simply forgotten all about it.
You should never have told her, Claude.
I know, Rumpole.
As we lawyers say, don't jump before you get to the stile. The world is full of nervous husbands leaping about in level fields, thinking that they've got to clear obstructions which aren't actually there.
Oh, dear. I jumped before I came to the stile.
Always an unwise thing to do. Don't worry, it'll pass. Dame Phillida can make mistakes with the best of us. She herself had a momentary misguided admiration for a crooked bedmaker, but that's all over now. She'll forget about Mercy.
Just like Mercy's forgotten me.
It's the private life, Claude. Just let it rest in peace. It's a great mistake to try to protect it. It always leads to trouble.
There's no one, Rumpole, to be allowed to lead a private life anymore. Privacy is sacred, Rumpole. I'm sure you agree.
You're quite right, Hilda.
Of course I'm right.
Possibly.
In Rumpole and the Right to Privacy by John Mortimer, Horace Rumpole was played by Timothy West, Hilda Rumpole, Prunella Scales, Mr. Rankin, David Shaw Parker, and Claude Erskine Brown, Nigel Anthony. Liz Probert was Elaine Claxton, Hugo Winterton, Anton Rogers, Gervase Johnson, Stephen Critchlow, Sir Mike Smedley, Kim Durham, and Mrs. Justice Erskine Brown, Joanna David. Rumpole and the Right to Privacy was directed by Marilyn Imrie and is a Catherine Bailey production for BBC Radio 4.
Sergeant Cribb. Abracadabra. In the seedy music halls and fogswirled streets of Victorian London, Sergeant Cribb is on the trail of killers, thieves, and other assorted unpleasant characters, including Jack the Ripper. Sergeant Cribb is not the flashiest investigator in Scotland Yard. In fact, he has little respect for the outfit and will probably never be promoted. His superiors are never eager to provide support for his efforts, so Cribb is left to rely on his own shrewdness and the plodding assistance of Constable Thackeray. Wearing his trademark bowler hat and squeaky boots, filled with lavish period detail and jaw-dropping plot twists, the adventures of Sergeant Cribb reveal the dark underbelly of Victorian life.
Step this way, ladies and gentlemen! Step this way and witness the death-defying aerial ballet! See the delicately delicious and delectable Pincus sisters! Watch as they combat the laws of gravitation 30 feet above terra firma! Hear the immortal phrases on the board!
Broadcasting Corporation presents Abracadabra, a 90-minute delectation of devilishly devious detection, mirth, magic, and mystery. Introducing Mr. Frank Windsor as Sergeant Cribb. Ably aided by Mr. John Hollis as Constable Thackeray. Their interpretations based on the characters created by the academical and aphoristic author, Mr. Peter Lovesey. And adapted from his novel, Abracadabra, for the amorphous acoustic wonders of wireless by Mr. Geoffrey M. Matthews. Ladies and gentlemen, Abracadabra!
Why, Miss Lola.
See that? Go on, look at it.
A charming limb. But do I detect an abrasion?
An abrasion? Why, that stupid fumbling baggage nearly killed me in me death-defying leap, too.
Does one gather that sisterly rapport is a little less than perfect tonight?
The silly bitch went off too soon, hit me full in the chest with her bloody great feet, and there I was, writhing in agony, dangling over the audience with my arms around, if you'll pardon the expression, her thighs. I'm precious near having to drag off her tights to hold on. It ain't dignified, not for a serious artiste. Anyway, bruises don't do anything for a girl's prospects.
Prospects? For wheresoever I turn my ravished eyes, gay gilded scenes and shining prospects rise.
What?
A snatch of Addison, my dear, in a different context. Forgive me. And now, while I have nothing but concern for your disfiguration, I observe that your prospects do not appear to be visibly impaired. So, before your twin sister Bella returns, I will simply bid you adieu. The disclosure of yet another set of injuries could affect me profoundly. Oh, Miss Bella, if you will excuse me.
Stupid, blundering jade. Makes a change to have a footprint on your chest, don't it, darling? Just you wait till the word gets round Leicester Square. Here, what are you doing? That's me cut-glass powder bowl. Oh, Lola, no! Leicester Square, Dolly Mott. Who went off too bloody soon? I went off perfect. Come on, Lo, admit it. You swung too far. Swung too far? Next you'll be saying you didn't have a nip before you went up tonight. Me? A nip? Well, you know I've worn the blue ribbon for 7 months. Anyway, before you start throwing blame on others, darling, you'd be safer watching your own weaknesses. What the hell do you mean? How about your fancy soldier boy? And what's wrong with him? Nothing at all, darling, if the grass on the back of your dress is anything to go by. You foul-mouthed mot! I'll tear your hair out. Where? Stop it! That's not fair. You're hurting me.
Ladies, cease this instant. Now, behold.
What the hell's that?
That, dear lady, is a length of rope from your trapeze. Someone, Miss Lola, had very carefully removed it.
You mean the trapeze was shortened?
Precisely. Your accident was planned. Indeed, you are most fortunate to be alive, so I would consider that a visit to the nearest police station would be well in order.
Order, gentlemen, order. Well, Constable Thackeray?
Adjective, Inspector.
Adjective?
Well, adverbial pronoun.
Adverbial pronoun. Gentlemen, as you have no doubt gathered, Constable Thackeray and I have crossed swords before. 3 times, Thackeray?
4, sir.
4. And yet you still manage to avoid using words of more than 2 syllables. For instance, gentlemen, in this exercise, Thackeray has carefully avoided the word misdemeanor and substituted minor offense. An ingenious stratagem, Thackeray, and one of which I might almost approve were it not that your spelling is unequal to your ingenuity. As a result, gentlemen, Thackeray's minor becomes a toiler beneath the ground, while the word offense, the way Thackeray spells it, becomes a wooden enclosure.
Urgent message. Just arrived on the dog cart, sir.
Oh, thank you. No reply. Dismiss.
Sir.
Thackeray?
Yes, sir.
It appears someone wishes me to release you from my class.
Oh.
No, Thackeray, I shall not refuse. And as the finer points of orthography have eluded you for so long, I have no doubt your training can wait a further week. So on your way, Thackeray.
Yes, sir. Where to, sir?
Where else, Thackeray? Where else but to Great Scotland Yard? Ooh. There you are to report to a Detective Sergeant Cribb, whoever he may be.
Maybe, Thackeray. But one must keep an army of pen pushers out of mischief. And here in the statistical branch, they can occasionally come up with something interesting. Now, pull up a chair.
Oh, I'm obliged, Sergeant Cribb.
Smoke, if you like.
Oh, sir.
Yeah, I've stopped, but it might help your concentration.
Thank you, sir.
Tell me, Thackeray, your spare time, spend much of it in the music hall?
Music hall, Sarge? No. I'm more of a melodrama man myself. Irving at the Lyceum, Wilson Barrett at the Princess. Now, there's entertainment for you.
Matter of opinion. But you have been inside a music hall.
Oh, yes, I've had to. Once I had to Camden on my regular beat. But it's not my cup of tea.
From now on, it's going to be. Here, take a look at these. Well?
Divisional accident reports.
Any other conclusions?
Oh, not yet, Sarge. Except a number of divisions are involved.
Well, I'll tell you. During the last 4 weeks, there have been 6 accidents, all in music halls. These were spotted by my constables, which means there may have been others. Some missed, others not reported by the division.
6 in 4 weeks, Sarge. It's uncommon hard to credit.
Singly, perhaps. But get them here together in the statistics branch, and they form a pattern which I, for one, don't find at all pretty. Now, Thackeray, place them in date sequence.
Date sequence. Let's see. First one, September the 15th. Accident on a trapeze. The Pincus sisters at the Middlesex.
The Old Mo.
What, Sarge?
The Middlesex, known as the Old Mo.
Oh.
It's built onto the Mogul Tavern in Drury Lane.
Oh, that's where the Pincus sisters complained to Sergeant Woolwright that someone had tampered with their trapeze. The sergeant mentions that Miss Lola Pincus showed him a prominent bruise.
That man's an idiot. In my experience, Constable Thackeray, injuries to young women are best taken on trust. I've heard of more than one sprained ankle that lost a good sergeant his stripes. The next one. That, as I recall, was Bellotti.
Bellotti the barrel dancer. September 17th, Metropolitan Edgware Road. Does the hornpipe on 3 barrels. On this occasion, he stepped on the centre one, slipped and fell flat on his face. Broke his arm and... Blimey, set his aerolite on the footlights.
Not surprising, considering the macassar some of these foreigners smarm on the heads.
The report says the locals found a line of axle grease smeared round the barrel.
Nasty little episode. The next one was the Oxford, I believe, 2 nights later. A fight, wasn't it?
Yes, Sarge. A comedian called Sam Fagin assaulted a stagehand, broke the man's jaw. The case was dismissed the next day at Bow Street. The magistrate agreed that while Fagin had acted rashly, he had been subjected to extreme
provocation.
Provocation, yes.
Now, Thackeray, that is what interests me. Look at the report.
Yes, let's see. According to the arresting officer, nothing untoward was observed until Fagin went into his closing song. Take it from me, but she likes it. After the last verse, Fagin asked the audience to join in the chorus. The words of the song, printed on a large sheet of paper, unrolled slowly. First line to appear was correct, but the rest, according to Constable Burton, had been altered shamefully by an unknown person and made reference to a gracious personage which no loyal subject could repeat.
An officer of singular discretion. See what happened next?
1,800 members of the audience went through the song. Then the appalling significance of the words registered. Fagin was pelted with fruit and booed off the stage. That's when he assaulted the stagehand. Hey, you any idea what the words were, Sarge?
I hardly dare speculate. But if it's what I suppose, take it from me, Thackeray, she would not be amused.
No. You ready for the next one, Sarge?
Not particularly. But as you must be made aware of the details, you'd better read on.
Yeah. September 20th, Tivoli Gardens. A sword swallower. Yeah, show me. Oh, well, I call this downright mean. I mean, it must be bad enough to push a blade down your throat, but to have someone smear half of it with mustard.
Continue, please, Thackeray.
2 other incidents happened 2 weeks later. There was a misfortune to Miss Penelope Tring, the voice on the swing. She nearly fell what a predicament. Here, the constable seems to have been uncommon well placed to report it so accurately.
Don't look so wistful, Thackeray. You were not at the Royal, and I do not intend to have it restaged for your benefit.
No, Sarge. Except it could have been a pure accident.
Thackeray, if you can bring yourself to read beyond the constable's description, you will find that Miss Tring's garments have been tampered with in 3 places, as soon as they came under pressure.
Cool, Sarge. It's surprising she chose to jump off the swing.
Landing in the stalls, breaking her arm in 2 places and knocking out 1 member of the audience.
I don't suppose she felt a thing. Anyway, Sarge, the last one was at Canterbury on October 9th. Stuff this sword up. Well, if this was deliberate, I reckon we're after a lunatic. I mean, the poor girl could have died. Do you think it connects with the others?
I don't know, Thackeray. But if it does, we're holding the wrong man in Newgate Prison.
Newgate, Sarge? Something sniffy rotten. Now, you wouldn't trouble yourself with penny gaff performers and broken limbs. Not unless you had something else.
Indeed, Thackeray, I have. This was delivered to Stonehenge Police Station this morning.
A playbill? Well, I'm sorry, Sarge, but...
Use your eyes, man. See the inked rings.
Grampian. Sensational tragedy tonight. Well, he must be a lunatic. Point is, Sarge, what can we do about it?
Try and reduce the risk. The hall will be checked before the performance. And later, you and I, with 4 plainclothes men from Stone's End, will be in the audience. But first, we're going to pay a visit to Newgate.
Wilson, on your feet. Visitors.
So you're Wolston. My name's Cribb. Detective Sergeant Cribb. This is Constable Thackeray. But that needn't mean trouble.
What matter? I'm Stoney.
Understand me, Wolston. I'm not here for a bribe.
Makes a change.
I need information. I want to know what brought you here.
A police van.
I thought you were a magician, not a comic. We'll start again. Now, I don't think you're a jailbird.
Stone walls do not a prison make.
Right, Wolston. Attention. Now, hand on the table. At the double. Look at his hands, Thackeray.
Very nice.
Neat set of fingers. He'll need to keep them that way if he wants to stay a magician. What do you call it? Legerdemain? I wonder what sort of legerdemain you'll get up to in Newgate. Might try you on the pump handle. Most manage about 5,000 revolutions a day before the vistas slow them down.
Mr. Cribb, for heaven's sake, you wouldn't.
Try me. Unless, of course, you prefer to tell me what went wrong at the Canterbury.
Well, I don't know. A mechanical fault. You've seen the trick done?
I've heard of it.
I've seen it done, Sergeant.
Probably you have, my dear fellow. It's not original. But not even the famous Dr. Lynn or Maskelyne used my method. I wouldn't use rubber swords or female contortionists.
In that case, Wolston, I'd suggest you had better explain your method. You'll have to be in court.
No magician enjoys destroying an illusion. I seem to have little choice. So, imagine a large box. It's empty. A shapely girl steps inside and a door closes on her. Now all you see are her head and feet. Then, accompanied by a drum roll, I take a dozen swords, so sharp they chill the blood, and thrust them through the box. It seems impossible that none will penetrate her body. The audience waits. Then, with the effect achieved, I withdraw the swords, open the box, and show the girl unhurt and as exquisite as when she entered.
Hey, how do you fool the audience?
Very simply. Because the audience sees the girl's face and feet, they believe her body must be facing them.
But it has to be.
Because, Constable, you believe your eyes. You see boots and you think her feet are in them. But the boots are several sizes too large so the feet can be removed. But that means the girl can move her body quite freely, so she turns her body to the left, putting it in profile, so to speak, while she still stares directly at the audience.
Ingenious and simple.
There's more, Sergeant. Let me see. This table, it's nothing more than a flap hinged to the cell wall. I release this clip, and it drops. Same principle is incorporated in my box.
To what purpose, Mr. Woolston?
Support, Sergeant. You see, once free of the boots, my assistant releases a catch. That releases a flap. Narrow, but still strong enough to provide the support necessary for her body to be kept clear of the blade.
Except that at your last performance something went wrong.
The flap gave way under her weight.
So she couldn't avoid the sword?
Not completely. She managed to twist away from the first one. Unfortunately, the second penetrated the fleshy part of her leg.
Surely she tried to warn you.
Yes, she did, but she usually looks alarmed as I drive home the swords. It's part of the act. No, Constable, I only knew something was amiss when I felt some resistance.
What happened then?
Oh, there was deplorable confusion. A policeman climbed on stage, a doctor appeared, but nobody wanted to open the box for fear of aggravating the girl's injuries. And I, in my own distress, failed to appreciate one point of significance.
What was that, Mr. Woolston?
Everyone but me thought she was impaled through the stomach. They turned the box round so that it was horizontal. Then one of the boots dropped off. Well, that provoked screams from the audience. Anyway, a carpenter sawed the box open and the girl was taken to Charing Cross Hospital.
And that was when you were arrested?
Yes. All because the wretched girl kept on screaming that I'd impaled her on purpose.
Ah. Had you quarrelled recently?
No, we'd had a few wry words earlier in the evening. She was putting on weight.
And she didn't take kindly to your criticism?
She did not, but I was right. She was too blasted heavy for the flap.
You examined it after the incident?
In all that confusion? No. And you won't be able to now. Stage managers never keep useless props backstage.
Evidence should never be destroyed. Tell me, Mr. Woolston, what are you charged with?
Assault. But I understand there may well be other charges. The damn girl isn't in any danger, is she?
I believe not. Mr. Woolston, this girl, would you have wanted to hurt her?
No.
But you had quarrelled earlier.
Constable, I'm a professional. I have a reputation in all the halls. That girl was a first-class assistant. But to get her that way, I had to train her. Without that, she'd still be at the Alhambra, earning 10 shillings a week as a figurine and taking drinks from soldiers in the interval.
In the valley, was she?
Until I rescued her.
Then she spoiled everything by putting on weight.
Yes, ruined my career. The hours I spent teaching her how to move in the box. Now it's all destroyed.
If so, I'm sorry. But I'm grateful for your plain speaking. Now, Thackeray, we mustn't detain Mr. Woolston. My nose tells me there's a pot of Newgate stew close by. And I ain't planning to stay for lunch.
Well, that's the first half over. And I must say, Sarge, it's better than batting me off round Bermondsey all night.
Or attending education classes, eh, Thackeray?
Now, here's two handsomes if I ever saw them. You look the sort of gent who'd have one of me hot kidney pies, hot and fresh. Or how about a plate of natives to swill with your fizz?
Fizz? Hey, how about it, Sarge?
On your 35 bob a week, Thackeray. I'd say Fawkins was nearly your mark, so we'll settle for 2 pints of East India.
Oh, tar.
Mustn't forget why we're here, Thackeray.
Well, if I can't sell you anything better, perhaps you prefer a couple of dainty companions to share your box. Come on, what you say?
Well, Thackeray?
On 35 bob a week. Anyway, Sarge, you said I wasn't here to enjoy myself.
Ah, then I'll bid you good night, gents. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Looks like they're starting.
You merciless rebel. And now, since I happen to be on my feet, I might as well tell you what else you have in store. A regular jamboree of delights. A bill that'll touch your hearts and tickle your fancy.
Wish someone would tickle him, Sarge.
Just concentrate on how quick you can get down on that stage. If anything happens, I want you there fast. Understand?
We've not a sight or a word to offend even the most delicate-minded ladies among you. You think so, madam? Well, so do I. Meet me after the show and I'll remedy the deficiency. But now, without more ado, fresh from a success at the London Pavilion, the Metropolitan Tivoli Garden. Here in Parton, to charm you with a ditty, the delicate, delicious Miss Ellen Blake.
Oh, she's a stunner, isn't she?
Keep yourself in check, Thackeray. I don't want you on the stage just yet. Good Lord, man. You're foaming at the mouth.
Foaming, Sarge? Oh, sorry, it's just head off the ale. Well, she's certainly a stunner.
And she's getting a damn good reception. You know, Thackeray, it wasn't so long ago that they covered the orchestra with netting.
What for, Sarge?
Protection. It kept the rotten fruit away. Favourite missiles when audiences didn't like duck performers.
Oh.
Anyway, here we go.
Temperance observer, I shall enjoy a tipple of fish, generously subscribed by the table on my right. And while I drink their health, the show will proceed with a redoubtable display of manly vigour from that sovereign of strong men, that Hercules from Rotherhithe, the great Albert.
Body. He won't need much protection.
There's a pity about the moustache, Sarge. Don't look much like an ancient Greek to me. God, blimey, look at the woman. She's just about as big as he is.
Keep away from Albert, missus. You'll rupture him.
Wonder if they're related. Now, what's he up to with that basket?
For my son Albert's first feat, a unique portrayal of the greatness of Britain and her empire.
Blimey, Sarge, you ain't going to lift those barbells.
Thackeray, that prop basket. I'll swear it moved.
Well, it must be part of the act. Anyway, she's unstrapping it. Still, I feel sorry for him having to stand with that load of iron above his head. Sarge, there's something in there.
It's a bulldog. It's ferocious, Thackeray. Albert, it's got him. He'll drop those barbells. Well, don't just sit looking. Get down there and help take the dog off him. Right. I'll see you backstage, Thackeray.
Careful.
Oh, right. Get him on the couch.
Yeah, he's all right. Right, everyone out. The show goes on as billed.
Now, where's the medicine chest? Howdy, man.
Look here, you. This is my theatre.
Yeah. Where do you want the basket, Sarge?
Oh, I'm bleeding to death. Get that vicious animal out.
I don't want anyone else in here.
Sorry, old boy. But that dog is evidence.
And I'm a police officer.
Major Chick. Ah, but you're a right man in an emergency. This gentleman says he's a policeman. Really? I wouldn't have said so. Looks too blasted intelligent.
Detective Sergeant Cripps, eh? And that's Constable Thackeray sitting on the dog basket.
Uh-huh. Chick. Percival Chick. Major, retired, late adjutant, 8th Hussars. I'm a detective. Private. You may have heard of me.
Can't say that I have, sir. But after I've attended to Albert, perhaps you'd care to tell me why you're here.
Oh, well, then you better have this here. Iodine. Used fine for disinfection. Especially if poured on liberally. It's a rare capacity for enlivening a man.
Right, Albert. Let's have a look. Thackeray, your pocket handkerchief.
Sarge.
What the...
Albert, dearest, I just heard. Is he injured badly?
We don't know, Miss Blake. Not until I'm allowed to attend to him. Major, perhaps you'll support his leg. And you, Miss Blake, try and keep Albert from becoming further distressed. Yeah, not too much blood. Dog's teeth sank in a bit. Now, Albert, I'll just wipe the wound clean. There. And we make a pad, saturate it with iodine, and apply it so.
Oh! Absolutely perfect, Sergeant. Damn it, man, you're wasted at the yard. Should be an army surgeon.
You'll be all right now, Albert. And no other injuries?
Only my ankle. I twisted it when I fell through the stage.
It'll keep you off work for a couple of weeks, and you can thank that blasted dog of yours for lost wages.
My dog? That thing isn't my dog. Why, Beaconsfield wouldn't attack anyone. He's so old, it's all he can do to stand.
Substitution? Sure, we've a cunning adversary here, Sergeant.
Quite. Well, Albert, if that animal ain't Beaconsfield, where is his lordship?
Well, I don't know. Last time I saw him was when I put him in his basket, just before Miss Blake's act. I like to watch it, so I prepare all my props first.
So the dogs could have been exchanged at any time after that?
Suppose so.
The substitution must have been made while Miss Blake was performing. Who else would be in the wings at that time?
Almost anyone. Music hall is different from the legitimate theatre. We changed the running order to fit the star billings. Like tonight, Miss Jenny Hill went on at 8. Nothing could alter that because she had to be at the Royal Aquarium at 9 and the Pavilion at 9:45. So I had to change the order to ensure I had enough time to get a cab across to Tothill Street. And that can happen on any night, so you see, Sergeant.
Surely you've some notion.
Well, I'll make an inventory if that pleases Scotland Yard. Let me see. We have the Red Indians and Salton Battery. They're policemen too. The Daltons, 9, or is it 10 stage hands? Or shall I continue?
No. You've made your point. But you, Major, why are you here?
Told you. Investigating.
I engaged Major Chick last week. The halls have suffered a series of strange occurrences recently. I considered having him here as an insurance. However, your swift arrival also indicates that you were on watch. Why?
That's not important for the moment. Major, you've been here a week. Have you noticed anything irregular? Anything at all?
It's deuced difficult to answer, really, Sergeant. Nothing here but chaos. Stage hands being hired and fired on the same day, dancers and stage door Johnnies waltzing around the back. Not to mention the...
Beaconsfield, I found my beautiful Beaconsfield. There he was, all alone in that horrible quick change room, by himself. And if Miss Charity Finch-Hatton had not found it necessary to adjust her garter, we might not have found him for hours, would we, Beaconsfield?
Thackeray, a chair. Please sit down, ma'am. And, Thackeray, get that other animal out of here.
Oh, very good, Sergeant.
Come on, you're under arrest.
Cribbs is the name, ma'am. I'm a police officer, and I should like the liberty of asking some questions.
We shall answer if we are able. Oh, now hush, Beaconsfield. Oh. Well, officer?
First, ma'am, can you tell me why you did not notice, before the act, that is, that the dog in the basket was not Beaconsfield?
Once we have dressed Beaconsfield, we do not venture near the basket. It pains us enough to have to imprison him. So all we noticed tonight was a dog. And since he was in the right basket and dressed in a red, white and blue flag, we assumed it was Beaconsfield.
So you have no idea who might be responsible for the mishap?
If we were aware of that, Mr. Cribb, you might be arresting us now. We would not take kindly to anyone who was inconsiderate enough to harm our poor little pet.
I will remember that, ma'am. But now you must attend to Albert. He will require assistance in getting to his lodgings.
Assistance? Surely a little dog bite isn't going to stop him walking?
Yeah, well, I twisted my ankle when I fell. I'll have to rest for a couple of weeks.
Rest? Oh, for 2 weeks?
I can't put any weight on it, Mum.
So I will be forced to return to serio-comic singing just to keep out of the workhouse. Do you hear that, Beaconsfield?
I'm sorry, Mum.
Not as sorry as I am. And now perhaps my big, strong man will tell me how he intends to get home. Are we to carry him on our back?
We'll see to Albert, ma'am. Miss Blake, if you'll be kind enough to fetch his clothes. Come on, Albert.
Arm round my shoulder. Now, Albert. On to the bed with you.
Oh, that's better. Oh, I'm grateful to you, Mr. Cribb. And now, if you'd be kind enough to light the gas.
Of course.
Thank you.
And you've assisted me greatly.
I have, Mr. Cribb.
A background on the halls. Very useful. Just one thing, though. Miss Blake. She has a number of admirers?
A great many. But I don't have cause for worry. Ellen does not encourage mashers.
Could one of them have arranged tonight's episode?
No. No, whoever took Beaconsfield from the basket knows a rare amount about the act. Anyone knowing that much would realise that any overture to Ellen would be a waste of time.
Which, to my mind, Albert, leaves us just one suspect.
Who, Mr. Cribb?
Your mother.
Ma? Oh. There isn't much she hasn't done in her time but ruin our acts. Upset Beaconsfield? Never.
You're quite certain she isn't responsible?
I'll take my oath on it.
You may have to. Well, nothing else you need? Right. I'll be on my way.
Evening, Sarge.
Midnight oil, Thackeray?
Oh, well, Sarge, it's just to...
Your face. It's as long as Big Ben. Means you want to speak your mind. You have my permission.
Well, Sergeant, this musical stuff. It ain't worthy of you. There ain't even a corpse to make it worthwhile.
You could have had one tonight if the dog had had rabies. I agree, Thackeray, that what happened tonight may not have been murder, but it was a professional assassination. Albert was laughed off the stage, and that, Thackeray, has ended his career. And when the villain goes on to challenge me...
Challenge you, Sarge?
Yes, Thackeray. Forgotten the warning on the playbill? I haven't, and I don't intend to. Now, you've studied the report?
Yes, Sarge.
What do you conclude?
Oh, very little, really. The more I read, the more ridiculous it seems.
Thackeray, you're incomparable. I knew you wouldn't fail me. Yeah, of course it's ridiculous. That's the whole point.
The point?
Ridicule, Thackeray. The common element is ridicule. There's no better way to ruin a performance than by ridicule. Imagine what would happen if your precious Irving fell through the stage in the last act of The Bell.
Heaven forbid, Sarge.
He'd be finished. Just as Albert was finished when the dog bit him. Can you see any audience ever taking him seriously again? As soon as he shows his face, you'll get barking and growling all over the theatre.
You mean someone planned to make laughing stocks of these performers? Well, the point is, who have they fallen out with?
Find one common denominator. One name. That, Thackeray, is what I hope for. Until I tried tracing the victims. Trouble is, they've all disappeared. Quit the lodgings, except for Woolston. At least he's still safe in Newgate.
Well, I wonder where they've gone, and why.
Poverty, Thackeray. Lack of employment raises problems. For all the spangles and champagne, your average artiste is usually just one step away from the poorhouse.
No forwarding addresses, Sarge?
No. All their letters go through agents. Only trouble is that not one of our accident-prone friends have been to collect. There's a stack as tall as your hat waiting for the Pincus sisters, and they weren't even injured.
Well, we could list them as missing in the Police Gazette.
Already done. But the fact remains that 6 people have vanished, and that, Thackeray, is why I've arranged for a constable to watch Albert's lodgings. And just to be on the safe side, perhaps you'd better get into plain clothes.
Take over, Sarge.
In the morning. You can relieve him at 6. I don't anticipate any difficulties.
They'll go.
Smoking on duty, Constable?
Oh, Major Chick. Blimey, so you startled me. I didn't expect to see you here.
Oh, why not? Investigations have to go on. Noticed anything?
No, quiet as the grave, except for the milk. Honest, Major, I'm tempted to ask you to hold the fort. I'm starving.
Oh, I'd hold on if I... Yeah. That four-wheeler's stopping. It's on.
Do you know either of them, Major?
No. Tall fellas. Could almost be twins.
Reminds me of undertakers. No. They've gone into Albert's.
Got your bracelets handy, Thackeray?
My what?
Handcuffs, man. Can't take chances with obvious villains.
Oh, well, sir, my instructions were just to observe.
Instructions are not orders, Thackeray.
How about Sergeant Cribb said... Hey, they're coming out again. What's that they're dragging?
Drunk. Heavy, too. Oh, poor Albert.
What?
Knew they were assassins the minute I set eyes on them. Well, Constable, I don't know what Scotland Yard's going to do, but I'm going to pursue those damn scoundrels all the way to the continent if necessary. Thought something like this might happen. Made preparations. Cab standing by in Brook Street. Room for you if you want.
I'm obliged.
Good man. I'll climb aboard. And you, Thackeray, wait in case the blighters separate. Then you follow. Otherwise, see you at the end of the road.
Major, wait. Albert, he's come out. Blimey. Hey, you! Albert, stop! Good, now what? Hey, Major Chick!
Hey, wait for me! Don't worry, Thackeray. I'll report to you later. Must be off. Don't want to lose him.
Report later.
That's what he said, Sergeant. But at least Albert didn't end up in the trunk. He's alive.
Was alive. Whether he still is debatable. And I thought you had brains.
Well, I'm sorry, Sergeant, but you did say observe. I didn't want to give the game away.
All right, Thackeray. Come in. Major Chick.
Yes, I said I'd report. Take it Thackeray has told you what happened. Sorry I had to leave you, Constable, but he was well ahead, didn't want to lose him.
Did you?
Lose him? Oh, never knew a hansom that couldn't catch a growler. Followed them halfway across town. Ended up in Kensington Palace Gardens, place called Phil Beach House. Saw Albert and his escorts go in. Didn't know what to do, so talked to a gardener. Found out the place is owned by Butterley. Sir Douglas Butterley, millionaire, made a pile from gin. Decent chap for all that.
What does he want Albert for?
Well, he doesn't. House is run as a home.
A home?
Yes, for music hall performers on hard times. He's got about 20 there at the moment. All down on their luck.
Down on their luck? You know, Thackeray, looking at this place, it's no wonder they left their lodgings.
Makes me wish I'd been on the old Sarge. It's a blooming palace.
A gin palace.
Gin palace, Sarge.
Ah, never mind, Thackeray. Good morning. We are police officers. Kindly inform the tenant. Talkative fella. Thackeray. Hear anything?
Just singing, Sarge. Which is Sunday.
That song ain't never been in my hymn book.
Mistress says you can come in now.
Ah, thank you. Come along, Thackeray.
Blimey. It's a museum. Look at those posters and those masks. Sarge, the furniture.
Oh, please come in, gentlemen. I'm Mrs. Body.
Sergeant Cribb, ma'am. This is Constable Thackeray. Routine check, ma'am, on missing persons. I understand you run a home for destitute performers.
That is correct, Sergeant. The singing you hear is an entertainment we're rehearsing. One never retires from the theatre. That banging, however, is not part of the performance. I have the gas man here.
On a Sunday, ma'am. That's a mighty regular.
Gas leaks, Constable, are not respecters of Lord's Day observance. The gas man informed me it could be dangerous if neglected. Now, do sit down and explain how I may assist you.
I'm obliged, ma'am.
Ah, you've chosen to sit on a precious relic, Sergeant.
Oh.
No, don't move. That chair is the very one that W.G. Ross used in the 20s when he sang the Ballad of Sam Hall.
The condemned suite.
Ah, you remember. Splendid. Mr. Cribb, I do believe that you're a connoisseur.
An overstatement, ma'am. My interest in Sam Hall was purely professional. Still, it's a fine collection you have here.
Obviously, you are knowledgeable, Sergeant. I do hope I can help you, and then you'll have to come back.
It will be my pleasure, ma'am. Now, about these missing persons. I believe that... Mrs. Body, that noise.
Oh,
could you...
Of course, Sergeant, if you'll excuse me.
Quick, Thackeray, through that other door. Check the gas man. Right. I'll keep watch.
You there.
Slap bang in the enemy camp, what? Major Chick. You better get back. I'll hold the fort out here.
Right, Major. Sergeant?
Don't bother, Thackeray, I heard.
Do forgive me for rushing away. They were quite unaware that they were disturbing us. I've asked them to be quieter. Now to business.
Get your notebook ready, Constable.
Oh, a notebook, oh dear. It's enough to make me forget my own name, let alone those of my guests.
Just ignore Thackeray, ma'am. Think of him as just another mask on the wall. Now, please, dear lady, try and recall the names for me.
You're so considerate, Mr. Cribb. You remind me of my late husband. Your eyesight, I trust, is quite in order.
I believe so, ma'am.
Oh, do not count on it. Nusquam tuta fides, as Mr. Body used to say.
Nusquam who?
Latin, Thackeray. Our confidence is nowhere safe.
Oh.
No, don't write it down.
Mr. Body lost his spectacles in Hyde Park. He was unable to locate them and walked straight into the Serpentine. Unfortunately, he'd never learnt to swim and he drowned.
A tragedy, ma'am. But your guest.
Oh, yes. Well, now, there's Beatrice and Alexandra. They sing.
Surnames, Mom?
Never mind, Thackeray.
Well, the surname is Dartington.
Dartington.
They arrived 18 months ago. Then there are the other two sisters. They have a trapeze act.
Would they be called Pincus, Ma'am?
Well, yes, Lola and Bella. And were it not an old joke, I'd say they were very highly strung. Decent, but rather high-spirited. I think they miss the exercise.
They aren't working.
Oh, regrettably, no. The poor waifs had an unfortunate accident. It forced them to give up the alls. It was the same with the others, you know. Miss Goodbody, Miss Archer, Miss Hayward, Miss Tring.
Penelope Tring, the voice on the swing.
Ah, you know of her. Oh, Penelope will be so pleased. She had an unendurable experience, but we're trying to laugh her out of it.
Ah, that makes 8 ladies. Who are the others?
Well, there's Miss Harriet Morris, the song and dance artiste, and a new guest who arrived after luncheon. I confess I don't even know her name, but she's the mother of the strong man. He came here this morning. He'd been savaged by his bulldog.
That would be Albert. May I ask who brought him here?
Why, the undertakers, of course. Who else?
But he ain't dead. I saw him.
Obviously, you haven't heard of the undertakers. George and Bert Smee. They were one of the most whimsical terms in London until, well, they had an accident 2 months ago.
Accident, Ma'am?
It was most disconcerting. They accidentally got locked up in their own coffins. They've never been the same since.
And how did you hear about Albert, Ma'am?
Through a personal acquaintance of our benefactor.
Sir Douglas Butterley?
Yes, he's bedridden, but he had many friends who are associated with our philanthropy. Anonymously, of course.
I see. But you reached Albert uncommon fast.
Mr. Cribb, you ask such suspicious questions.
I merely inquired how you obtained Albert's address, Ma'am.
Well, where else, Sergeant, but from his agent? You know, Mr. Cribb, I have something upstairs that I know will interest you. My sitting room. It's a perfect replica of a box at the Alhambra, as it was before it lost its license.
Some other time, perhaps, Ma'am.
Yes. Well, perhaps when you wish to interrogate me in greater detail. Now, for my other male guests, we have nearly the entire Alhambra Orchestra.
They wouldn't be on my list. Would you have an Italian barrel dancer, Bellotti?
Yes, splendid. That's one of your list.
How about a comedian, Sam Flake?
Yes, he's here. In fact, that is his voice you heard singing just now.
Excellent. Perhaps we could go and see him.
Oh, no, I'm afraid not. You see, Sergeant, they insist on their rehearsals being kept quite private.
Why are they rehearsing, Mrs. Boddy?
Why, for their return to the stage, of course. It's their life.
Of all the cheap treasure the garden.
Hello?
There's one that I love.
Who's that?
That's Fagin again now. Oh, listen to him, Sergeant. He's so beautifully resonant.
They seem to consider it extraordinarily funny, Ma'am.
Very popular, as you know. Very popular. Oh, it's going on, I thought so.
With a creaking old back and a twisted old...
I never remember him being so funny.
Certainly I know that recitation.
Oh, excuse me, gentlemen. I fear they're getting beyond themselves again.
If chairs have much feeling in holding good...
Oh, be quiet!
Honest, Sarge, I hope Major Chick knows what he's doing. Uncommon dangerous playing with gas pipes.
Thackeray, get in there. Find the gas main, quick. Mrs. Boddy, are you all right? Look after someone. Thackeray, the Major, how is he?
He's gone, Sarge. Room's empty. Windows blown out.
No sign of a body?
No such luck. And as far as I can see, the old place is smithereens.
As far as you can see. Well, Thackeray, as far as I can see, the explosion must have addled your brains.
Well, it seems likely so.
That every music hall artiste of note decides simply to quit, causes accidents to themselves, just so they can get into Phil Beach House?
It's a life of luxury, Sarge. Anyway, this ain't our kind of case. Albert's happy. There ain't a corpse in sight.
So you'd like to leave it all to me? Very well, Thackeray. We'll part on good terms. Suppose I should have laid on a corpse or two before I interrupted your educational classes?
Educational classes, Sarge?
They are part of your normal duties.
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking, Sarge, my theory, maybe it could do with more investigation.
Possibly. It might even be correct. But certain things still bother me. Like who sent us that playbill warning us about Albert's accident? Why did the other accidents happen in different theatres, on different nights, with no two of the victims doing the same act? And why don't our friends in Philbeach House collect their mail?
And what was going on in that rehearsal room, Sarge? What did everybody find so funny in Fagin's monologue?
I don't know, Thackeray. But I assure you, I mean to find out.
Reckon you'll have something on him, Sarge?
Thackeray, in the statistics branch, we have something on everybody. If you know where to look. Let's see now. Butterley. David. Daniel. Here we are. Sir Douglas Butterley. Very wealthy. 90. Bedridden. Lost his power of speech. Lives in a nursing home in Eastbourne.
Any family, Sarge?
One. Son. Missionary in Ethiopia. Stands to inherit 3 wool mills, 2 houses, 3 distilleries, over 100 pubs, and... Well, I'll be damned.
Why, Sarge?
A music hall. The Paragon at Victoria.
Hey.
Small, but puts on a fair show.
Fair show's right, Sarge. There's more entertainment out here on the promenade. I mean, some of these girls are...
Extremely fetching, Thackeray. Even to me as a guardian of public morals. That one there, in the green gown. A paragon at the Paragon, wouldn't you say?
I suppose so, Sarge. What? It's Miss Blake, Albert's young lady. Wonder why she's here.
Let's find out, Thackeray. Good evening, Miss Blake.
I fear you have the advantage of me, sir. Oh, Mr. Cribb and Constable Thackeray, what are you doing here?
Enjoying the performance, miss. And now, may I ask you the self-same question?
My father manages this hall.
Oh, I thought the manager's name was Plunkett, miss.
So is mine. Blake is just a stage name. I wouldn't get many billings as Ellen Plunkett, romantic vocalist, now would I? But be honest, tell me why you're really here.
Look, miss, we only get 2 days off a month. They try to ensure that each man gets at least one Sunday, so if a copper uses the other day to visit a music hall, I'd say it was a tribute to the performer.
Or that he suspects the possibility of an accident.
Yes, miss. Have you heard whether Albert is contented in his new lodgings?
New lodgings, Sergeant?
Why, yes, miss. He's moved to a retreat for performers in Kensington.
Not Philbeach House. But I thought you were protecting him.
We are, miss. And I assure you he's most comfortable. Thackeray, your handkerchief.
Don't tear it, Sarge.
Oh. There, miss.
Forgive me, but he said nothing of this.
Oh, he will, miss. Now, are we to have the pleasure of hearing you perform?
No, Constable. I do not sing in my father's hall. I'm here just to attend to his business. Bookings, tickets, accounts. But the interval's almost over. You will excuse me. I have work to do.
But we will see you again, miss. Perhaps we might look in tomorrow night.
I shall watch out for you. You may care to go backstage. Now, I believe I am required. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Good night, miss.
Yes?
Special delivery, miss. Mr. Plunkett said you were fine.
Recognise him, Thackeray?
Very well. Put it there, please.
Certainly, miss.
It's the Undertaker, Sarge. I know them anywhere.
Yes, Thackeray, the Undertakers. Now, why should they want to deliver Beaconsfield's basket here? You know, Constable, I believe tomorrow night should prove most interesting.
Interesting, Sarge. Plain punishment. Even worse than last night.
Good evening, gentlemen. I believe we had an arrangement.
Miss Blake, an offer to visit backstage, I believe.
I must leave for the Grampian in half an hour, but we can commence in the canteen and then go through to the wings, if you care to follow me.
Careful, Thackeray. Quite an array, miss.
props. Everything that adds to our illusions. Now, if you'll pass through here, I'm sorry, it is rather dim. Rip, are you all right?
Believe so, miss. But I've lost my shoe. I wonder. Is there a lamp?
Just wait there. I'll get a candle.
Thackeray, here. These barrels, can you see what's inscribed on them? Yeah, just about. Giovanni Bellotti. But that's that barrel dancer, Sarge. He's not on the bill here. No, and neither is Albert.
Here we are.
It's all right, miss. I've located the shoe.
Good. This way, then. The girls' dressing rooms are up here.
Blimey.
I see it surprises you. You see them on stage in their tinsel. You probably cannot imagine them dressed in these rags and their lodgings. No, Sergeant. There isn't very much glamour for them once they come off the stage.
What's the burnt newspaper for, miss?
They use it for lining the face, like all this here. Chalk, India ink, cheap recipes for beauty. But they have little choice. Unlike some of those fallen women who parade on the promenade, I hate each and every one of them.
Whores, miss, need pity, not hate.
No, Sergeant. Hate. For their lacquered lips, their rows of jewels, their expensive perfumes, while my honest girls have nothing. Try telling them that virtue is its own reward, especially as they stand shivering, watching those other Jezebels being handed into carriages.
Well, if it's any consolation, miss, and I see a rare amount of the seamier side of life, not many of these fallen girls will escape the poorhouse. Remember their faces, miss. One of these days, you'll see them again. Older, sicker, peering at you from the Thrupney Gallery at the Grampian.
The Grampian? I'd forgotten. And now there's no time left to show you the wardrobe and lighting box.
Ah, don't worry yourself, miss. We'll find our own way out. You hurry along. By the way, Miss Blake, can we pass on a message to Albert?
Albert? But you said he was...
Laid up at Phil Beach House, he is. But we may have occasion to visit.
Yes, please. Tell him he is in my thoughts. Now, if you're certain you'll be all right...
I will be fine. You just hurry along, miss.
Very well, then.
Right, Thackeray. Let us proceed. Wouldn't do to be found in the ladies' dressing room. This way, I think.
I reckon we must be right under the stage here, Sarge.
Correct. The show is just about done, and I don't want to be disturbed. Not until I've taken a look around the hall. Now, what do you conclude?
I'm not sure, Sarge. But Bellotti's barrels, Beckenfield's basket, and the Undertaker's, well, there could be a connection with Phil Beach House.
A brilliant deduction, Thackeray.
Yeah.
What other evidence do you want? Mrs. Body in a tutu? Of course there's a connection. If Bellotti's barrels are here, he isn't going to be far behind.
But he ain't advertised on the bill, Sarge.
Nor is Albert or any of the guests from Phil Beach House. But I'll lay a guinea to a shilling that somewhere here there's a room full of their props. And I want to know where and why.
Maybe we ought to go upstairs, Sarge. Watch the end of the performance. Could be another accident while we're down here.
Most unlikely. Anyway, there's a perfectly capable man watching.
Oh, another CID man, Sarge.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Thackeray. Playing third violin in the orchestra. Surely you must have spotted him.
Orchestra? Not Major Chick.
As large as life. Thackeray, you're yawning.
Sorry, Sarge. Just that it's dark.
Too much beer, more like. But since we're likely to be here for a while, you can stretch out and sleep it off. It could be a very long night.
Sarge. Sarge. Wake up. Wake up.
Huh?
Listen.
What? Yeah. Sounds like Fagin. Come on, Thackeray. Let's get up top and see why he's performing in the middle of the night.
Blimey, Sarge. Look.
Careful, Thackeray. We don't want to be observed.
Sarge! The girl in the cane bottom chair. She's naked. And Sarge, that chorus. Oh, blimey.
Look in the wings, Thackeray. Another Olympian. And equally naked.
God save us, Sarge. It's Albert's mum.
Yes, Thackeray. But look at the audience. Those two in the box. Know them?
Audience, Sarge? No. 2 MPs? 3 peers of the realm?
In the front row, Thackeray. Second from the right.
Oh, no, Sarge. Blimey, I'd heard he was a lad. Here, let's go before we get done for treason or something.
No. Look on stage. A sword swallower. I wonder if his throat is healed.
Thank you, my lords. Now, for my first trick, and for your delectation, my charming assistant, Miss Lola.
Sarge, it's Lola Pincus, or I'm a Dutchman.
At least she's decently clothed.
Patience, gentlemen. You may think you've seen all too little of Miss Lola, but soon you will see even less. This is the most marvelous fluid in the world. Drink it, and you disappear completely. But I feel obliged to announce that it is not for sale, just in case any gentleman would like to give it to his mother-in-law. Ah, Miss Lola, your cloak. Our friends may like to be assured that you are flesh and no mere illusion.
Cool. How can she do it, Sarge? Stand there like that.
Ah, Miss Lola, drink! Watch closely, gentlemen, to see it, to believe. I passed my cloak before her. Now you see her. Now you don't.
Thackeray, backstage, quickly.
Come on. Out the way. Please. Quiet. You. What's happened?
Well, she came through the trap, screaming. Yeah, we was waiting for her under the trap, and suddenly she screamed and she come through.
She hit the mattress, twitched, then she was dead. Just like that.
Just like that, Mr. Plunkett. Now, I'm no scientist, but when a healthy girl dies in a matter of seconds, well, sir, I think of poison. When I note her pupils are dilated and her cheeks have a blue tinge, I consider prussic acid. So if I'm right, and you try and lick what's in this glass, I reckon there'll be 2 corpses for post-mortem.
Sergeant, the audience, they know nothing of this.
So, Mr. Plunkett?
There's no reason why they should. Discretion, Mr. Cribb, is worth something.
If you're suggesting anything, Mr. Plunkett, I must warn you that bribery is a criminal offence. I have a duty and every right to ask for your cooperation. That does not mean that I intend to stop this performance, though I have serious doubts.
Doubts? But it's a private show.
Of the sort you'd normally find in some penny gaff in Cairo. But that ain't my concern. Not yet. Now, Virgo, the conjurer who worked with the deceased, where is he?
In his dressing room. He was somewhat upset.
And the deceased's sister, Miss Bella?
Oh, God, I'd forgotten about her. She must be in the balcony. If she comes here and
Thackeray,
discovers what...
Get up there and break the news to Miss Bella.
Sergeant.
You. Find a dust sheet. Place it over the body. And Thackeray, talk to Virgo and anyone else who might be able to assist. I must get back to the yard.
Oh, hope I'm not intruding. Thackeray told me you were here.
Sit down, Major.
Thank you.
I didn't know fiddling was one of your talents.
Thought I saw you prowling. Didn't make a move. Assumed you might be incognito.
Thoughtful of you, sir. Now, draw up a chair. You know about the tragedy, of course.
Miss Pincus? Yes. Another accident that went wrong?
Hardly, sir. The poor girl died from prussic acid poisoning.
Gad. Murder. By person or persons unknown.
Exactly, Major. But I intend to alter that. Now, what may I do for you?
I said I'd keep you informed. I've been sniffing. Have a pretty good idea what's going on at the Paragon.
I'd be pleased to hear, Major.
Well, it's pretty run-of-the-mill, except that it's owned by Butterley. You know he has an affection for theatricals, hence Philbeach House. Now, all the residents are destitute. They stay there, are rehabilitated, and return to their careers at the Paragon. And that's it.
You've met Sam Plunkett, Major.
Plunkett? Oh, the manager wallow. Oh, fellow with all the philanthropic tendencies of Shylock, huh?
Quite. But experienced enough to know that none of Butterley's destitutes could ever fill the Paragon.
Suppose so. Especially when the place is overloaded with second-rate singers. So?
So, to build up audiences for the Paragon and line his pockets, he had to book outsiders.
I don't understand. I thought he was pledged to using people from Philbeach.
He is, and to prevent Sir Douglas from getting suspicious, he had to put on some kind of show using the destitutes. He decided on a late-night performance, indicated that the proceeds were for charity, touted the gentry using Sir Douglas Butterley's name, and sold the house out within a week.
Amazing. Wouldn't have thought it possible.
Plunkett chose his customers carefully, Major. Promised them something out of the ordinary. Then he persuaded two of the vocalists from Philbeach House to appear, wearing little more than a spotlight. They stopped the show. Suddenly, there he was, running a private music hall for the gentry and sitting on a gold mine.
They're all very well, Sergeant, but every female in Philbeach wouldn't work in the well, you know, well, anyway, even his clientele would soon tire of that.
Of course, sir. Plunkett knew that. The show needed expanding. He couldn't recruit outsiders, but he had to provide variety.
And if Philbeach House couldn't supply them?
Yeah.
The accidents. He had them laughed off stage, then got them into Philbeach House, and a performer living off charity wouldn't argue too much about the work he was offered. Is that it?
That's only my theory, Major. And he ain't going to admit it.
What? And 6 of the victims were on his bill last night?
Still not evidence, Major. And there's another problem. The audience. There were a couple of gents there that I couldn't place. Sitting large as life in a stage box, feeding oysters and bubbly to their doxies. I sat here most of the night wondering. Came to me this morning. I knew.
Well, man, who were they?
Coppers. I'd seen them here, in the director's office.
Oh. Ooh, deuced awkward.
Yes, Major, as you say, deuced awkward. Especially when the press starts sniffing about the murder. If their names get out, I'll be lucky just to be sent back on the beat.
So Plunkett will get away with murder? Oh, you can't be serious, Crib. Think of that poor girl.
I am, Major. And as I recall, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So, if you'll excuse me, sir, I think I'll go and inspect a box from the old Alhambra. I'll call on you later at your lodgings.
Copied from a box at the Alhambra. This room is a perfect replica, Sergeant.
Yes, Mrs. Boddy. It certainly brings back memories.
Oh, just step inside, Mr. Cribb. I have a small trolley containing refreshments, and I'll draw the curtains. So much cosier.
Thank you.
There. Now, just sit down comfortably.
Thank you, Ma'am. Now, I trust you will not object to my discussing a personal matter.
Oh, not in the least, my dear. Down the hatch.
Well, Ma'am, about Miss Lola. There are certain complications.
Oh, such a tragic accident.
No, Ma'am. Such a tragic murder.
Murder? But I understood...
Murder, Ma'am. As a result, your friend, Mr. Plunkett, could be in serious trouble. Especially as he has mentioned his connection with you at Philbeach House.
My reputation, Sergeant, is beyond reproach.
I assure you, he said nothing indelicate. The connection appeared to be purely of a business nature.
In that case, he's telling the truth. The residents here need work, and the Paragon provides it.
Tell me, Ma'am, the deceased, Miss Lola, what kind of a girl was she?
You'll forgive my amusement, Mr. Cribb. I hesitate to speak uncharitably of the departed, but to be frank, any member of the opposite sex was like a curtain call to Lola Pincus. She flirted with all the guests. Sam Fagin, Bellotti, Professor Virgo, almost the entire orchestra at the Paragon.
Did that not lead to bitterness?
Yes, especially as Lola had agreed to assist Bellotti with his barrel act. Then she took up with Virgo without a word of explanation.
So Bellotti disliked Virgo?
Dear me, no. Bellotti knew that Virgo hadn't taken Lola away. In fact, it's still a mystery how they wheedled their way into his act.
You're sure Miss Bella couldn't have persuaded him?
Bella? My dear Mr. Cribb, that girl was completely dominated by her sister. Lola always had the last word. Oh, I know of only one occasion when she met a match, but, oh no, my chit-chat must be boring you.
On the contrary, Ma'am.
Well, it happened last Monday. Albert, the strong man, and his mother brought their dog into the dining room. Lola objected most strongly.
Any criticism of Beaconsfield would not have gone down well with Albert's mother.
Oh, completely incommoded her. She retorted that Beaconsfield was a working member of a troupe and so had every right to be present. Lola fought back. A dining room, she said, was no place for, oh, well, pardon me, Mr. Cribb, stinking animals. In that case, said Albert's mother, perhaps Lola should leave, for Beaconsfield at least was Bath fortnightly, which was more than she cared to say about Lola.
A formidable lady. She was a rare sight, portraying Britannia.
Ah, you enjoyed her portrayal. Then I have news for you. She's soon to accompany Albert in a new tableau arranged specially for the Paragon.
You mean that the exhibitions are to continue?
Callous it may seem, Mr. Cribb, but we have no choice. The date was fixed well before Lola's untimely demise at the command of a most distinguished patron.
Lord. Not the...
He's old enough to have a mind of his own. He has been before, you know, incognito. Now that he chooses to declare his interest, we must not disappoint him. And that is why Albert is making such an effort. Why, Mr. Cribb, where are you going?
Over the edge of this box, ma'am. I have urgent matters which require my attention below.
Honest, Sarge, who'd believe it?
Yes, Thackeray. Now you know I'm a reasonable man.
I know you don't ask for much, Sarge.
And I'm no malcontent either. But surely an officer is entitled to some support from his superiors.
Oh, that's what they're there for, Sarge.
But did I get any? No. Spent half a day convincing the yard it was important enough to disturb the inspector on his day off, and then, do you know where I ran him to work?
His club?
No. At the Westminster Aquarium, goggling at fish. Ah, Sergeant, he says to me, didn't know you were an ichthyologist. After you and I have been running around like lunatics trying to prevent a national catastrophe.
Fair makes me sick, Sarge.
Anyway, I told the inspector what I'd learned from Mrs. Boddy, and do you know what he said, Thackeray?
No, Sarge.
He said it was an affair of state, that he already knew about it.
Well, Sarge, you've done your loyal duty. You can't do much more. Not unless you charge Sam Plunkett with murder.
Maybe I'm cynical, Thackeray, but somehow I don't think there'd be any future in charging Plunkett. Anyway, I've been ordered to lay off the Paragon.
Makes me feel completely impotent, Sarge.
Hasn't affected me as badly as that. But if I can't approach Plunkett, who else can?
Search me, Sarge.
A private investigator, Thackeray. Someone like Major Chick. Get her moving, Cubby.
But damn me, Sergeant, what'll happen at the Paragon on Tuesday if there's a murderer loose?
That, sir, is up to you.
Oh, damn it, man. Right. I'm an officer, oath of loyalty and so forth, at your disposal.
Now, that, Major, is uncommon generous. Now, strategy. A map. I see you have one here. Let me see. Kensington. Here we are. Phil Beach House. I suggest we mark it. Thackeray, the stopper from that bottle behind you will do.
Right you are, Sarge. An appropriate emblem, Sergeant, but I hardly think the prussic acid fumes will aid our deliberations.
Prussic acid? Blimey, he's right.
May I ask, sir, why a bottle of prussic acid?
Oh, don't worry, Sergeant. I know what you're thinking. No, I wouldn't keep that in view. Not if I'd done in the Pincus girl. Matter of fact, I got it at Phil Beach House.
Phil Beach House?
Yes, our late Mr. Boddy was a bit of a scientist. There's a shed in the garden full of chemicals. Noticed it when I was doing the gas pipes.
So any one of the guests could have used it?
Oh, absolutely. Shed wasn't locked. Anyway, I thought about it. Went around this morning and brought it back here. Possible evidence.
Evidence, sir?
Yes. You see those lines? There, on the inside of the bottle. Now, they indicate the various levels of the acid as it was used.
Glass is uncommon clear between the last mark and what's left.
3 inches, Sergeant. The last person to help themselves took a deucedly large amount.
A valuable find, Major. Here, Thackeray, you better take care of it.
Sarge.
Now, Major, to work. I suggest we deploy our forces according to platoon strength on 2 sectors. The platoon with the greatest number concentrating on that point where the enemy appears to be in full strength.
Excellent. You know, Cribb, you're wasted at the yard. Could have done with you at the Khyber. Greatest strength? Yes. Cribb, You and the constable had better take Phil Beach House while I attack the Paragon.
Brilliant, Major. Any questions?
One. Sam Plunkett. What do I tell him?
That's is up to you. All I want to know is whether Plunkett had a motive for murder.
Good heavens, man, you can't suspect Plunkett.
You have another theory?
Well, it's perfectly obvious who killed Lola. Mrs. Body. She had access to the acid. She detested the girl. Obviously, she knew Lola had seduced Professor Virgo, a man Mrs. Body was excessively partial to.
Didn't think she had one particular favourite?
Of course she did. There's one type that rarely appeals to her. Men with obvious weaknesses.
So her motive was jealousy?
Had to be.
Then how did she administer the poison? She wasn't at the Paragon.
You've only her word. All the residents were at the Paragon, so she's her own alibi. No, I believe she saw the residents off, then took a cab to the hall. She knew the order of the acts, so was in a right position to put the poison in Lola's goblet, and back she came. A crime of passion arranged for dramatic effect. Typical of these theatrical morals.
I'll grant you it's plausible, Major, but I still want to hear about Plunkett's links with the deceased.
As you will, Sergeant. Oh, do I say I'm from the Yard?
Better not, sir. Could be construed as impersonation. Just suggest you're trying to settle Miss Lola's estate. Now, we should deploy. We can rendezvous outside Phil Beach House at 2. Are you ready, Thackeray?
Well, I'm really baffled, Sarge. But I put all my money on Plunkett, but with the Major's theory, hey, which you back?
Thackeray, you disappoint me. The answer, my dear fellow, is neither.
Neither?
No. I know who killed Lola and why. But I need evidence. And that, Thackeray, is why I hope the Major will act as a catalyst, start a panic. Anyway, we'll see what we shall see.
Thank you. When you're ready, Sergeant.
Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm obliged you all were able to respond to my call for assistance in the sudden decease of, if Miss Bella will forgive me, of one of your number. Now, I have no wish to alarm...
Sergeant, I've got to talk to you very urgently about something.
I said at 2, outside.
New development. Plunkett says his daughter's disappeared. Vanished last night. Went out to see her young man and never returned.
She came here to see Albert?
Albert?
Our weightlifting friend here. He's Ellen Blake's young man.
Ellen Blake? Begad, Sergeant, I said Plunkett's daughter.
Ellen Blake is Ellen Plunkett. Thackeray, this is appalling. Why didn't Plunkett speak sooner? Ladies and gentlemen, your attention again, please. You now know that a lady well known to you is missing. She may be in this house. While my colleagues search, I must insist...
Insist, Sergeant? May I remind you that I am responsible for what goes on in Phil Beach House?
And I, ma'am, am responsible for the girl's safety. So all of you will please adjourn to the rehearsal room. Unless, of course, someone here can throw some light on the affair. No? Very well. Thackeray, Major, proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you
Albert, I would be glad if you would remain. Now, Albert, you didn't blink an eye when the Major burst in just then. Why?
I knew already, Sarge. Now, Mr. Plunkett was here early this morning. Mamma and I were up early. He told us about Ellen. We kept quiet because of the others.
You thought they might be jealous of you walking out with the governor's daughter. That it?
Walking out isn't allowed.
Rules of the house, eh? Well, do you think she's here?
No. She was here yesterday for half an hour. I'll swear she hasn't been back.
She was happy to see you well again, I dare say.
Well, less than I expected. Especially when I told her about the benefit next Tuesday. She didn't think I was fit. Suggested I get a doctor's opinion.
Sergeant Cribb, please, I must sit.
Mr. Plunkett.
Albert, I must converse with him in private. The matter is grave and urgent.
It pertains to your daughter, sir?
That, sir, is no concern of yours.
This time it is. Yes, you may speak with Albert, but in my presence. I believe that your daughter's disappearance is connected with the murder of Miss Pincus.
What? My daughter connected with Lola? You believe that?
I believe it so strongly, sir, that I demand to hear.
Demand? Demand? Well, I'll report you.
You may report me to my inspector, to the chief superintendent, or the director of criminal investigations himself. But I say this. Your charity, that penny gap peep show may be out of reach of the law, but killers of women are not. Well?
Very well. I have no choice.
But before you do, Mr. Plunkett, I warn you I have little sympathy for you. I went to a deal of trouble to piece together how you stocked your music hall, and I have enough evidence to paper the walls of the Paragon with charge sheets.
Yes, but sir...
Unfortunately for me, those walls are well protected. But it's a strange world, because whether you want it or no, you'll need my help to find Miss Ellen. Right. Where is it?
What?
The ransom letter. That's why you're here, isn't it? Here, Albert. You read it.
Dearest Papa, I have been abducted. To effect my release, you must place £500 in banknotes and a valise. At midnight tonight, Albert must carry the valise and place it in the centre of the stage at the Paragon. Then he must leave. If this is done, I shall be released within the hour. Otherwise, I shall not be seen again. I am mortally afraid, so do not fail me. Your loving Ellen.
Now you know why I had no wish to tell you, Sergeant. I may have condemned her already.
I doubt that, sir. But what do you intend to do?
Pay, of course. What else?
And you, Albert?
I'm willing.
Good man. You have the money, Mr. Plunkett?
I will have, after tonight's performance.
Capital. And I will provide the valise. Then each of us will have contributed something. Oh, Albert, just one thing. I'd like to borrow Beaconsfield.
Beaconsfield, Sergeant?
He'll come to no harm, I assure you. Now, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Steady, Beaconsfield.
You there?
This way.
Lost it, Pog. Can't see a thing. Where are the others?
Others?
Yes. Thought you'd have the place ringed with uniformed police.
Oh, no, Mr. Plunkett, sir. Very unwise. I'd scare them off. Is that the money?
Yes. It's all there.
Excellent. Well, I'll make it 3 minutes to go. Oh, I'd be obliged if you'd do me a kindness, sir.
Kindness?
Beaconsfield here is uncommon frisky. Plainly wants a brisk walk. Perhaps you'd oblige.
Oh, certainly, certainly.
By the time you return, Albert will have delivered the money, and we can sit back and wait for Miss Ellen.
Right now. Albert, on your way with the shekels.
Very well.
Come along then, Beaconsfield.
Shouldn't take him long, Sarge.
Couple of minutes.
And if he's not back soon, I'll get after him. Fog's thickening, Sarge. Can't even see across the street now.
Cool. Thackeray. There's someone out there. Can you see who it is?
The sound, Sarge. I say it was Albert. Come back.
I've done it, Mr. Cribb. You think we'll see Ellen soon?
Very soon, Albert. Hear anything inside the hall?
No, but I felt I wasn't alone.
That's exactly how I feel now.
There, Thackeray, quick, grab him. Gotcha. Come on, you. Let's have a look at you.
Oh, right. Let's see who we've got.
Stay still.
Not you. Let go, Thackeray. It's the Major.
Oh, Thackeray, you confounded imbecile. You're breaking my arm.
May I ask, Major, what you're doing out in weather like this?
Following a suspect, damn it, all the way from Phil Beach House to here.
It was me, Major. I saw you when I left the house.
You? You mean I tramped halfway across London?
Calm down, Major. Albert is assisting me. And you, sir, precious near ruined my plan.
Well, I didn't know you had one. I thought we were working together. Walked him around. Anything happened yet?
Albert's done his part. Now all we can do is wait.
What was that?
Quiet, Beaconsfield.
It's her, I'm sure.
Ellen, here.
Albert! Albert!
Helen, are you all right?
Yes, Father. Quite safe. They took the money and then made off through the prop room window.
You said they, miss.
There were two of them, a man and a woman.
Would you know them again?
No. Papa, I was terrified. Please, may I go home now?
Sergeant, listen. Sounds like flames.
Thackeray, Major, quick. Take a look inside and keep your wits about you.
This way, Major. Inside all. Careful, man. Get back, Thackeray! Quick, it's an inferno! God! Beaconsfield, Major! He's run into the flames! Don't be a fool, man! Come on, back to the others!
Sergeant, Beaconsfield escaped. He's in there.
Don't worry, Thackeray.
My hall next Tuesday.
You can't let Beaconsfield burn.
Grab him, Thackeray.
Oh, you murdered him, Crib. I saw you.
There.
You slipped his leash.
Yes, he's assisting the police. Come on, Beaconsfield. There's a good dog. Give it here. That's it.
The valise. But Ellen said the kidnappers took it.
And but for Beaconsfield, I'd have found it a mite hard to prove they didn't.
But why kidnap Ellen and leave the money?
They didn't.
They didn't?
No, because they didn't exist. Did they, Miss Blake?
Crib, you're insane. Look at the poor girl. Anyway, why should she do such a thing?
Why, indeed. But I fancy it had a lot to do with Albert.
Me, Sergeant?
Yes, Albert. Look, the Paragon is in flames and likely to be gutted unless the brigade gets here soon. There'll be no performance on Tuesday, and your honor, Albert, will be no longer at stake. And if I wasn't about to arrest Miss Blake, I've no doubt she'd be making plans to marry you.
I hope you know what you're saying, Crib. Arrest Ellen? On what charge?
We could start with obtaining money by false pretenses, go on to arson, and end with the murder of Miss Lola Pincus. Now, Miss Blake, if you'll hand over the money, it is in your reticule, I believe. I have a police van waiting at the end of the road.
Now, honestly, Crib, what on earth made such an attractive girl as Ellen commit these dastardly crimes?
You've seen her confession, sir. It's all there.
Her confession? Yes, but no reason.
Puritanism and infatuation. A powerful combination, Major.
Puritanism in a music hall singer?
Why not, sir? Her own act was eminently respectable.
So it was the midnight shows?
Yes, and the way in which Plunkett recruited his performers.
You mean staging the accident?
Exactly, sir. Then she learned that Albert was to be a victim. She decided to stop it and sent that warning.
A playbill from the Grampian. Unfortunately, we were not able to prevent Albert's mishap.
But what put you on to her? I mean, the bill was sent anonymously.
Yes, sir. But I began to wonder about Ellen after our first visit to the Paragon. She knew we were on the force, but she made no effort to warn her father. She even took us behind the scenes. She must have known we'd find Bellotti's barrels.
Especially as we'd seen the undertakers delivered Beaconsfield's basket.
It was that oddity that started me worrying. Especially as her whole demeanor indicated how strongly she disapproved of her father.
But you surely didn't suspect that she killed Lola Pincus?
No. That was a mistake. But she did, using acid that Plunkett held to fumigate the Paragon.
But why Lola? I mean, she had no reason to.
She was desperate to save Albert's reputation. The hall had to be closed before the command performance. The only thing that would guarantee that was a death. And Lola Pincus's act was the only one which allowed the use of poison. Killing a showgirl was nothing when it came to saving Albert from dishonor. By now, Ellen was fanatical about stopping Plunkett. What she hadn't realized was how important his reasons were for continuing.
Presumably, he will be kept out of everything?
Rest assured, Major. Royalty, in this country at least, is still sacrosanct.
But you still had other suspects.
There were only 5 possible murderers. Albert's mother. I eliminated her because she came into the wings well after Lola's props had gone on stage. Albert was bedridden at Phil Beach House, so he was out. And so was Mrs. Boddy, since she was watching his interests. And you, Major, were in full view, fiddling in the orchestra.
Crib? You mean you suspected me?
I suspect everybody. But as I said, sir, having eliminated the others, all I was left with was Sam Plunkett and Miss Blake. I couldn't see Plunkett killing Lola in his own hall.
Which left one suspect, Ellen Blake.
Then when Plunkett arrived with a ransom note, I realized she was worried, trying to throw me off the scent. But she still wanted to keep Albert. So by seeming to put him at risk, she made him a hero.
But surely she didn't need the money.
It punished her father and made a good dowry for Albert.
So you let her collect it?
Yes, but I supplied the valise well smeared with aniseed so that Beaconsfield could sniff it out. Unfortunately, I didn't foresee the fire.
You think she started that deliberately?
Well, the brigade seemed to think so, sir. It served Miss Blake's purpose. Total destruction was the only way to stop the command performance. Her father wouldn't be able to put on any more indecent shows, and the police would be burned to a crisp.
Fortunately for us, Beaconsfield did his work well.
Really, Crib, you astound me. I assume your superiors have been duly grateful?
Promotion, perhaps?
Not exactly, sir. The entertainment at the Paragon had quite a following. From the top down, you might say. And as to the blaze, well, some could consider that I just let the Paragon burn. So, to avoid any possible suggestion that a police officer disapproved of Plunkett, it was agreed that all credit should pass to you. In fact, sir, there will be an excellent editorial in the Times describing your part in the whole affair.
Really, Crib, Thackeray, possibly, well, deuced grateful. Could do my practice a power of good. Oh, but you two, surely there has been some recognition. Well, sir, some of the managers of the halls have clubbed together
and produced a reward, eh? Yes, sir. But as Thackeray and I are police officers, we are unable to accept it. However, we should like to present it to you. Thackeray?
Yes, sir. Here it is, sir. A ticket allowing you, Major, free admission to every music hall in London for a whole year.
Abracadabra by Peter Lovesey was dramatized for radio by Geoffrey M. Matthews. The part of Detective Sergeant Cribb was played by Frank Windsor, and that of Constable Thackeray by John Hollis. Major Chick, Peter Bathurst; Albert, Nigel Anthony; Bella Pincus and Ellen Blake, Helen Worth; Lola Pincus, Jane Knowles; Music Hall Barker and Master of Ceremonies, Alan Dudley; Education Officer and Mr. Plunkett, Douglas Blackwell; Woolston and Virgo, Rolf Lefevre; Fagin, William Edel; Mum, Margot Boyd; Mrs. Body and Beaconsfield, Alwyn Griffiths. The play was produced by David H. Godfrey.